I would like to call the school board meeting for Tuesday, November 21st, 2023, for the Des Moines Public Schools to order. Ms. Rios, could you please take the roll?
Yes, gladly. Ms. Alonso Diaz?
Here.
Ms. Bradley?
Here.
Ms. Caldwell-Johnson?
Here.
Ms. Knox?
Here.
Ms. Martorano?
Here.
Ms. Norris?
Here.
And Ms. Sawyer?
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. The first item of business is approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion and a second to approve this evening's board meeting agenda.
Sawyer, so move.
Alonso, second.
Board members, please cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. The next item on our agenda this evening is district recognitions. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Roberts for his presentation.
Good evening, Board. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. As we continue to bring forth recognitions at meetings, accomplishments of our teachers, leaders, staff, and our students throughout Des Moines Public Schools, tonight I have yet another example, shining example that is, of such celebrations. At every board meeting, the district's leadership team and I are really pleased to share these recognitions with you, both of what is happening in the classroom and outside of the classroom. You know, when I first joined Des Moines Public Schools, and even now, I'm often reminded that this is the most urban school district in the state of Iowa, and that is true. But that does not mean that our students, our incredibly remarkable and talented students, and our teachers are not deeply involved in and committed to learning about practicing many aspects of what many may consider to be what I think of as well as a rural endeavor, agriculture. Understanding and embracing the tenets and practices of agriculture and its impact on human existence is vitally important to everyone, no matter where you call home, certainly no matter where in the Midwest you reside. I am proud that the Des Moines Public Schools, the state's largest urban school system, is home to one of the largest animal science and horticulture programs, along with one of the most active FFA programs in Iowa. As I mentioned at our last board meeting, DMPS students represented us very well, and they represented not only Des Moines Public Schools, but the state of Iowa at the recent National FFA Convention, and I'm honored that a few of those outstanding students could be here with us this evening. Thank you for being here. Trinity Bart from Lincoln, Lillian Taden Duff from Roosevelt, and Leslie Cineros from North are members of our veterinary science team who earlier this year were recognized as the best in the state, earning them the right to represent Iowa. I also want to give a shout out to our Central Campus teacher, Mr. Kevin Anderson, and although he couldn't be here with us this evening, but he has done great work as a teacher and a mentor to these outstanding students representing the entire state. Trinity, Lillian, and Leslie, thank you for representing us here at DMPS and for representing the great state of Iowa. And I'd like to invite you to come to the podium to share a little bit with us about your experience and your interest, if you may, in this subject. Let's welcome them to the podium.
Okay. Hi, my name's Lillian Chaden Duff. I am a junior at Roosevelt High School, and we recently competed in the Veterinary Science Career Development event through Iowa, and then once we won that, we went to nationals. We competed against 46 other states, and we ended up placing bronze. We had one team member that placed silver, and the rest of us also placed bronze. A lot of people don't know this, but we at Central Campus have the Ag Lab that's out on County Line Road, and we have a barn and 3 greenhouses. This hands-on experience that we've been doing since we started here is kind of what got us to the point of a national competition. I've wanted to be a veterinarian since I was able to talk, so having this opportunity through a public school is kind of wild. I never expected it. When I found out about it, I immediately wanted more information. And I talked to my counselors and I got involved. And then I got there, and the first day we had piglets. And I did not know what to think because I'd never seen a pig that small in my life. And then over those next 6 months, we watched them grow, and then they went to market, which was kind of sad. But it really is amazing what we do at Central, and like the learning that I get and the career opportunities that I might have just because of that program when I'm older, especially through college credit through the classes, and then hopefully going to Iowa State with the credits that will transfer there. But yeah, that's all I kind of wanted to say. Thank you guys for being here.
Hi, my name is Trinity. I'm a senior at Lincoln High School. And when you think of an agriculture class, you usually think of maybe 4 high school boys with a mullet putting together a tractor. That's not really something you would think that we have here at Des Moines Public Schools. But a lot of us, we joined the program because we're interested in veterinary science. That's what most of us are in the program for specifically. So like Lily said earlier, we won the state veterinary science competition, which was the first time in a long time that our chapter has ever won any CDE or LDE. I think the last time somebody went to nationals was for an agri-science project, which is a lot different than a CDE or LDE. So preparing for the national contest was really stressful. We put in so many hours of studying. I put in about 2,000 hours just myself. There's a lot of hands-on working, like with the animals and stuffed animals too. And we didn't just learn about like how to work with animals and how to diagnose them and stuff. A lot of it was learning to work together and encouraging each other, because there were some days where some of us didn't want to study, but then somebody came to us like from our team and said, hey, like what are you wanting to accomplish from going to nationals, you know? And so it was kind of just us building each other up, like encouraging each other, and again, you know, learning to work with other people, and also connecting and doing something that we're all interested in. You guys have any questions?
Lots.
Okay.
Lots, but we'll have to take them offline.
Okay.
Mullets for the men and all.
Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you so much. Madam Chair, that concludes this evening's recognitions.
Thank you. Those were great recognitions. Congratulations. We really appreciate your commitment of time and energy and effort, but also your amazing representation of Des Moines Public Schools. Congratulations. The next item on our agenda is item C1, Monitoring Report, Goal 3. Ms. Alonso Diaz, are you prepared to facilitate again this evening? I am. Excellent, thank you. I will turn our discussion over to you at this point.
Thank you. All right. Well, we're going to have our monitoring conversation regarding Goal 3, the percent of Black male 11th grade students proficient on the ISASP mathematics assessment will increase from 17.7% in June 2022 to 45% in June 2026. And then also our interim goal 3A, the percent of grade 6 through 8 Black male students meeting benchmark on the FastBridge math screener will increase from 15.7% in June 2023 to 45% in June 2026. I must indicate that this report is on track. Should I say that again? This report is on track?
Hallelujah.
And first, I would like to make sure that 4 things are evident or projected in our report before we can begin our conversation. One, we have to make sure that it clearly shows what is being monitored, the specific goal and the interim goal. And board, do we agree that we have that?
Yes.
Yes.
It shows data for the 3 previous reporting periods, the current reporting period, and the target reporting period.
Yes.
That includes annual targets and deadline target. Thank you. It also shows that the superintendent's evaluation of the performance via this report is there. Do we show this?
Yes.
It shows supporting documentation that evidences the superintendent, that's what I thought. Siri thought so too. Thank you, Siri. I appreciate your approval. It shows supporting documentation that evidences the superintendent's evaluation via the tables provided. It also indicates our next steps. Do we show this?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Then we can begin our monitoring conversation. We will start with the who, what, and why questions. And so, board, if you have questions for Dr. Roberts, please, whoever would like to start.
Dr. Roberts, I will go ahead and start. On page 2 of the report, under what is not going well, we still see a gap in Black males and all students remaining persistently high. And then there's also the gap between Black males in Des Moines meeting the benchmark, falling below that benchmark in comparison to those in the Heartland AEA and the state. Can you glean some light on why the data is showing that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sawyer. Indulge me if I may, just in terms of providing that additional context, right? The FastBridge assessment is a screener, and it's a screener that certainly it has a lot of credibility, and it's one that is intended to really transform the way that teachers identify and can track student progress on assessments. One of the good things about the screen is that it allows teachers to spend more than 50% of their time now teaching and less time testing. And so we are certainly excited about the data that the FastBridge assessment and screener is providing to us. In terms of what is not going well, it's certainly one of those things that tends to keep us up at night. The gap exists because we are seeing many instances where while there's progress, we still have some room in which we can grow both in terms of teaching and leadership around providing sort of culturally responsive pedagogy to students. As the board is fully aware, we have invested considerable time and resources in partnering with Unbound Ed, utilizing the GLEAM framework. And the GLEAM framework was created by Unbound Ed to make sure that we are providing with intentionality culturally responsive instruction to Black and brown students. The work is in its infancy, and I want to attribute some of what we've seen in terms of the gaps to the fact that we have not yet fully implemented this GLEAM framework that really allows us to look at grade level, engaging, affirming, and meaningful instruction that is responsive to the cultural experiences and truly meets the needs of Black boys, or Black males, I should say.
I have a question. Dr. Roberts, looking on the first page, what do you see as accounting for the increase that we see with us being on track where we started at 15.7% in the spring and are up to 21.1% in the fall?
Yeah, so when I think about spring to fall, one of the key sort of inputs that the team and I have talked about is the fact that our elementary instruction, particularly in grades 4 and 5, is incredibly strong. And so we are attributing some of that work there. We're seeing instances where there's more of a commitment to fidelity around implementing our curriculum at elementary schools. And so what happens is we're seeing that transition, that translates into the academic performance of students in 6th grade. You will see certainly later on, and we can talk about this, where we are still seeing somewhat of a struggle is what happens after 6th grade. Yep.
And so that takes me to, I think, kind of along those same lines, Ms. Bradley and Dr. Roberts. On page 1, under what's going well, the 32% of sixth grade black male students met the benchmark in the fall. What is specifically working that this is happening?
Building on what, thank you, Mrs. Londa Diaz. Building on what I shared earlier, two things are happening. One, a commitment to data literacy at the elementary level, and that includes a focus by school leaders, our coaches, and certainly our teachers to make sure that they are really utilizing the data to drive the instructional practices that they have. Additionally, the illustrative math curriculum, we're certainly seeing fidelity of implementation with that curriculum, and that is critical. And third and finally, when we think about the work that we've started to sort of observe with our GLEAM framework in partnership with Unbound Ed, we're seeing a commitment to grade level instruction. That is happening at the 5th grade level. And so what we've seen then is there's also a much narrower set of changes in terms of standards and what is being taught in the curriculum from grades 5 to 6. There's not a significant change. Conversely, the standards on what is being taught from 6 to 7 has a much wider gap, and certainly I think we're continuing to work to make sure that that gap is made up. But tremendous kudos to our elementary teachers, coaches, and certainly our leaders, right, for the work that they're putting into this. So our commitment right now, and you'll see, we'll talk about it in the next steps, is how do we make sure that we're replicating some of those practices?
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one, and that is on page 2 in the what's not going well. Dr. Roberts, the adaptations that are being made that you talked about regarding preserving the grade level intention, can you give an example of what one of those might look like and how that's impacting success?
Sorry, preserving grade level?
The grade level intention, so the adaptations that are being made, this is at point 3 on page 2 with regards to the curriculum materials.
Yeah, the grade level intention is certainly building on what I shared earlier, right? That fidelity to making sure that even when the instructional delivery model requires teachers to have a level of rigor, it's important to sort of stick to what is there so that students can actually be pushed and challenged. Oftentimes what we see is when students are not demonstrating mastery of material and curriculum, teachers tend to, in an effort and wanted to make sure the students feel some success, may sort of reduce the level of rigor. And we applaud that at times, right? We want to make sure that, recognizing in any given classroom that there's an opportunity to have differentiation of instruction, that we're trying to meet the needs of every student. But what tends to happen in those instances is then we tend not to maintain a commitment to grade level instruction. We want to be able to push our students, recognizing that they're not all going to learn at the same rate and pace. So that's an area where we have to get better.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have a question about, we talked at length in our last monitoring report about summer slide, and that was not in this report at all. Is that anything that you considered or as applicable to the data? I know we were above target, but do you feel like that applies to or was considered to be applied to our middle school students, as we talked a lot about it being a factor in our elementary school reading scores?
Yeah, absolutely. So summer slide was not necessarily considered in this particular monitoring report, but what we have seen, though, is our summer program, Jumpstart, has definitely played a factor. We have data that shows, for example, one data set indicates that there were 20 students who were not meeting benchmark, and because they were exposed to the 2 weeks or so of our Jumpstart program, in the fall, we saw that they were able to get to that levels of increased proficiency.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh,
Yes, thank you. On page 2, under the what is not going well, what do you see as accounting for the vacancies and absences and low substitute coverage rates that you've mentioned?
Yeah, I know there is a great commitment on the part of every member of the cabinet, certainly working in collaboration with some of our community partners around our recruitment efforts. You know, this is one of those sort of disheartening data points over which we have very little control, but we are still committed to making sure that we improve our practices. Compared to the same period last year we had about 250 daily absences of teachers. This year, that number is about 300. The struggle and challenge that we're having is we have a fill rate of for substitute teachers, somewhere between 40 and 50%. So we only have on any given day 160 subs to fill or account for 300 absences. You know, this is certainly one of those moments where I have tremendous gratitude to our teachers, our instructional coaches and leaders who are in buildings, because they're going above and beyond, doing double and triple duty. And while I know gratitude is not enough, I have tremendous gratitude for them, because it's one of those areas that we cannot control, right? We do not have the subs in place. But rest assured, the board, the cabinet and I are thinking about ways to bolster our substitute recruitment, especially going into second semester.
Who is struggling the most right now? Where are you putting most of your focus?
In terms of substitute teachers?
No, I'm sorry. In terms of our student population, you identified that the sixth grade black males on page 1 are meeting the benchmark. So the 32% of them, rather. So who's the population currently that is struggling the most?
Yeah, so our approach is to make sure that we are doing two things, right? One, continuing to look at the data of those students, both groups, the all group, as well as the black male groups who are not meeting benchmark, and to continue to find sort of the tiered interventions that will meet their needs. Similarly, even those students who are meeting benchmark, we want to make sure that we are differentiating in instruction in a way that extends their learning so that they are continuing to get better and to improve, even as we're trying to bolster our students who are not meeting benchmark. So our approach is one that is really comprehensive, right? Not necessarily focusing on any one group at any given time, but certainly wanting to recognize that we have to have a differentiated approach to meet the needs of all of our students in any given scenario.
Thank you.
Colleagues, any other questions? If not, we will move into our future questions, our how questions. I'll go ahead and start with that. Page 2, Dr. Roberts, you just spoke about recruitment, addressing point 4 on page 2 under the instructional coach vacancies and the lack of support that you experience currently. Can you talk about what efforts you will make to enhance recruitment?
So thank you. That's an excellent question. One of the sort of tenets that we are looking to shift our focus towards is how can we be innovative and creative in terms of our recruitment efforts, right? And so that includes a number of areas. One, utilizing many of our national partners so that we can have recruitment efforts built into their platforms. Two, looking at areas where we have not necessarily spent a lot of time recruiting, and one of those areas is wanting to look at our historically black colleges and universities. I think what that is going to take from us and require of us is not only for us to utilize those resources sort of remotely, but thinking about putting a team together that can actually go and visit some of those campuses to sell and share some of the amazing work that we're doing here in Des Moines Public Schools. Very critical for us. And certainly, we are going to see when we get to another one of our guardrails is just creating the kind of environment and space that is inspiring to any potential candidate, makes them want to come here and be a part of the amazing journey that we've embarked upon. But of utmost importance, of critical importance for us is we have to disrupt the status quo. We can no longer continue to recruit the way we've been recruiting for the last 5 years, right? We have to do something different if we expect to get a different outcome around our recruitment practices.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
page 2, under what is not going well, you identify that the gap is 14.2% for our Black males. How are we going to accelerate the growth for our Black males in particular?
Yeah, just maintain our commitment around some really important work and groundbreaking work that we embarked upon beginning in March, and certainly I've shared updates in partnership with Unbound Ed and our GLEAM inventories. And the GLEAM inventories actually is a practice where we have a number of different school leaders, teachers, along with partners from Unbound Ed, joining us in GLEAM walks and inventories. And the desired outcome from these walks is to make sure that we are observing the instructional practices that are happening in buildings with the ultimate goal of aligning and strengthening those practices, maintaining fidelity to, again, looking at the acronym GLEAM, right, is the instruction grade level, especially as we think about Black boys. Additionally, are the instructional practices engaging, affirming, and meaningful? Thus far, we have, in the last several months, the last couple of months, conducted 550 classroom visits, classroom observations, with 202 school leaders and staff being a part of those visits. It's work that is unprecedented, right? We haven't done that before, and there's more of sort of an intense focus on making sure that Black boys, especially, both certainly the all group, but Black males, and how we're instructing them will continue to be a critical part of those observations. The findings from those GLEAM walk and GLEAM inventories incredibly illuminating, and it tells us that thus far we are failing. We are failing at meeting the needs of Black males. We're certainly failing at meeting the needs of students of color, Black and Latinx males, and females. And so it's something that we are going to be intentional about and continue to make sure that we are transparent in how we're attempting to meet the needs of those students.
Thank you. And I have a bit of a technical question, so forgive me, regarding that response. Over 500 walkthroughs is astonishing to me. How are we circling back with our teachers and providing the findings and illuminations that you're speaking of, and how is that, I can't even, yeah, sorry, that is it.
Yeah, absolutely. How does it translate? How does it get sort of trickle down so that it's really meeting the individuals who are really doing the hard work? So there are two ways that this needs to happen. One, well, the district leadership team just received the update from Unbound Ed on last Friday. So certainly want to make sure that we are not putting all of this on teachers while they're going into the Thanksgiving holiday. We want them to have conversations other than all of the GLEAM findings. When they return, we're expecting that the district's leadership team will have conversations with our school leaders, who will in turn share that information with teachers, sort of in a more general sense. Secondly, and this one is of utmost importance, the findings from the GLEAM inventories will translate into the practices around instructional rounds, where school leaders or instructional coaches and district leaders are observing classes and providing teachers with feedback within 24 hours. Certainly my commitment is to make sure that we are partnering with our leaders from the DMEA to make sure that that feedback is coming to us as to whether or not we are meeting the needs and sort of requests of teachers, to make sure we are providing them with feedback. The one exciting thing about this, thank you for the question, is our teachers are just enthusiastic and excited about getting the feedback. They're asking, now that you all have visited our classes, what's next? So we are committed to making sure that we answer that question through sort of intentionally giving them the feedback that they need.
Thank you.
Just on that, the idea of so many people walking through the halls and coming into the classroom and watching the teacher, I'm wondering what kind of feedback you've gotten from the classroom teachers, and if they're finding it to be a positive experience, and maybe just shed some light on that.
Overwhelmingly, it is a positive experience. Certainly, we want to be thoughtful about sort of two key pieces to this practice. One is to make sure that our school leaders are prepping teachers so that it's never a surprise to teachers. So let them know that this is what is going to happen on any given day. Secondly, it's important for us to create a culture here within the school system of spending time in classrooms, observing practices, and giving teachers that feedback. We want to be thoughtful about not conducting this practice in a way that can be disruptive, right? But not having this practice in place, not creating a framework and a system that allows us to observe teacher practice with a goal and commitment of not evaluating, but on coaching and building capacity is important. And I've said over and over again, members of the cabinet have also certainly doubled down on this. When we spend an inordinate amount of time in teachers' classrooms, is not to evaluate. Our commitment is around building capacity and coaching teachers.
Great, thank you. I have one other question. So if a student is not proficient at the end of the year, how do you balance the rigor and forward movement of the curriculum while at the same time ensuring that that student potentially lacks the foundational knowledge to keep moving forward?
Yeah, it's one of those things where we certainly rely on and value the expertise of our teachers in collaboration with our school leaders. The goal is never to sort of reduce or water down the level of rigor for students regardless of where they are, right? Our thinking is even when a student does not demonstrate a certain achieving a certain target around their academic pursuit or achieving proficiency, as long as we're seeing growth, that's encouraging. Ultimately, we want to get to the levels of proficiency. But I know our teachers are not daunted by students who do not demonstrate having achieved a certain target over a given period of time. In the case of students who, at the end of a semester or end of a quarter semester, who do not achieve the sort of targeted mark that we've set for them, then we have to go back and engage in practices such as reteaching, revisiting where that student may have had gaps, and differentiated our instructional practices to meet the needs of those students. And that comes in many forms, right? In class instruction, sort of looking at our multi-tier support system around interventions, or even thinking about what happens around extending that learning when the student goes home, either during the evenings or during a break. So we have to make sure we're constantly putting resources in place so students have continuity of learning.
This is tactical, but just to follow up, does that happen at the end of the school year before they go to the next school year, or does it happen once they start the next school year and are assessed to maybe not have all of the competencies?
It's ongoing. It happens continuously, right? Thinking about sort of the practice around formative versus summative assessments. The formative practice is where we are constantly looking at how students are doing in any given class period or in any given week to make sure that they're receiving that support. So it happens in both instances. Yep.
One more question. Page 2, under what we are going to do next, point 4. Overhire math and science teaching positions for next year. So this recruitment effort will be different from your previous approach that you described? Are you focusing specific resources to hire math teachers, or is it going to be the general approach that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, thank you. No, because our math and science positions are considered hard to fill, we are certainly going to have a different approach around our recruitment of math and science teachers. And that approach includes incentivizing, as we currently do, our math and science teachers in other hard-to-fill positions. We know that having highly qualified individuals in these critical areas bodes well for increasing student academic outcomes if we can. You know, our current vacancy, for example, as we sit today, we currently have 4 math vacancies at the middle school and 1 in high school. And so again, recognize this is really a testament to the fact that these positions continue to be a hard-to-fill position, right? Our fill rate for certified staff, and this is certainly something that is commendable. It's not 100%, but it's 98%, right? That is certainly worthy of celebration. But when we sort of look at the more sort of nuanced gaps that we still have around our recruitment practices, you know, having 4 math vacancies as the middle school is a gut punch, and we have to find ways to close those gaps.
Gracias, Dr. Roberts.
How might we see resources or this show up in the budget when we talk about the different approach that you're taking in order to make that happen?
Yeah, so a couple of couple of things for us to think about, right? Certainly recognizing that we are going to, building on what I shared earlier, look at finding ways to send teams to visit our historically Black colleges and universities. And the composition of the team should not just be our talented personnel or cabinet members. The best individuals who can sell the work that we're doing are our teachers, right? So this will probably require a partnership with the DMEA to make sure that we are tapping into their expertise so we can have them be part of those recruitment trips. Additionally, as we're thinking about how do we sort of mitigate this challenge that we're having around our fill rates, we have to look at our daily substitute rate of pay. Are we competitive enough, right? What is it going to take for us to encourage and entice the pool of substitute teachers out there to come to the Moore Public Schools on a daily basis? Having 300 vacancies daily, 300 absences daily, with only 168 or 65 or 60 subs to fill that does not set us up for success. So the board is likely to see and hear our requests to make sure that we are making the necessary pivots, right? And that includes making sure that the Moore Public Schools is offering the highest daily rate of pay for substitute teachers. It's not a long-term plan because it may not be financially sustainable, but we have to do something different in the immediate.
Just a follow-up question to that. So recruitment is really important. The efforts that you're putting into bringing new teachers, specifically math and science. And so hiring is important, but retention is also really important. And I'd like to know how you plan to retain students once students too. We want students too. Teachers, once we are able to have them, once we're able to convince them that DMPS is the place to be.
Yes, it's creating the right sort of environment and culture, right, for the school system. You know, should we get to guardrail 3C later on tonight, I'll certainly double down on that. But again, we know that within the pre-K-12 arena, there's a long sort of stand-in belief, and that is teachers typically don't leave schools or school districts because they want to. They tend to leave what is not an encouraging and inspiring culture. Right? And so I think it's incumbent upon me as well, along with support from other leaders in the district, to make sure that we are creating the right atmosphere and cultivating the kind of spaces and environment that inspires our teachers to want to be here. So yeah, it's critical for us to be able to continue to look at our teachers feeling valued each and every day. And if they're not, what are those pivots that we need to make? What are the tweaks to our practices and what adjustments are necessary?
Thank you.
I have a question about Unbound Ed and Gleam, and you said it was in its infancy. When do you project it to start to see it making an impact? When do you, is this, at the end of the year, multiple years, when do you see it impacting the numbers?
Thank you. That's an excellent question. And my response is twofold. The research tells us that whenever there is the implementation of any new initiative, it takes no less than 3 years for you to see sort of the return on investment. The second response to that question is we don't have the luxury of 3 years, right? And so we are expecting sort of to see the return, the academic return on this investment sort of incrementally, quarterly, semesterly, and certainly by the end of this year, I am looking forward to sitting in front of the board and then certainly presenting to the community the kind of returns we have seen. And just given what we have experienced thus far, I have the utmost confidence that we should start to see getting some traction around this investment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How can the board help?
Thank you. I think just the level of engagement that the board has shown thus far, just your willingness to continue to keep your finger on the pulse of student outcomes focused governing is really critical, right? Wanted to make sure that we are keeping the main thing, and that is what are the practices we need to focus on in order for us to really meet the needs of students? And then secondly, I think the continued partnership with the board and the cabinet and I around making sure that we have prudent decision-making around resource allocation Because while, on any given day, the cabinet and leaders in the district and I may have a certain request or ask of the board, and we may come back to you after a critical data review in 30 days or 2 months or at the end of a quarter and say, we've tried this and it's not working. But certainly the board's willingness to be nimble during this current climate of continuous improvement will support the work we're doing very well.
Thank you.
I just have one final question, and it really sort of goes back to this notion of our ability to not only recruit but retain the best and the brightest. And I want to be clear to my DMEA friends out here. This is not about dumbing down the profession, but it is about creating opportunities for non-traditional teachers to have opportunities to move into the teaching realm while also considering opportunities legislatively that might reduce the rigor associated with that need and that urgency that we are feeling here in Des Moines Public Schools and across all school districts in the state and, quite frankly, the nation. But I'm wondering if there might be an opportunity for us to consider some sort of legislative action, or at least some overtures to the Department of Ed that might allow some opportunity and some flexibility, very similar to what they did in the last legislative session with regard to early childhood and reducing the rigor associated with that. Not everybody bought into that, and I'm not suggesting that everyone has to buy into everything that's being advanced, but I do think that these stresses on the educational system, the lack of people moving into the profession, and people that may want to move from non-traditional teaching careers into teaching careers may create a win-win for the entire state if we think differently about how we approach not only recruitment and retention, but the rigor associated with the profession. So I would like to advance for the consideration of the board at some point, a legislative provision that might allow us to advance some things legislatively that might help to ease the burden that we're undergoing right now and create some win-wins not only for school districts across the state, but also for individuals who are not only interested in staying in the profession, but those that we may be interested in recruiting into the profession.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Terry. Do we have any other questions? Any future questions? Colleagues? Board? No? All right, I think it's time for us to consider whether or not this report is acceptable.
May I have a motion and a second to approve item C1?
Bradley, move approval.
Sawyer, second.
We have a motion from Bradley and a second from Sawyer. Is there any discussion, or do we have any final closeout questions for Dr. Roberts? Hearing none, I'd ask board members to cast their vote. Motion passes 7-0. Maria, thank you for your expert facilitation this evening. Thank you to your board for engaging questions and your preparation for tonight's discussion. I really look forward to continuing the momentum that we have moving forward with our monitoring work, because we know that that's where the rubber meets the road, not only in terms of who we are as a district, but the goals that we have established for our students. So thanks, everyone, this evening. The next item on our agenda is the public forum, followed by the consent and regular agenda. We provide speakers at the forum an opportunity to address the board for up to 3 minutes regarding items that are not on the board agenda. We also allow any person the opportunity to speak to the board for up to 5 minutes following the presentation of an agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak during any portion of the business meeting, please email rosa.rios@dmschools.org. The same speaking protocols apply to individuals who wish to address the board. Speakers will be called individually, and we ask that they state their name and address prior to providing comments. Students and minors do not have to provide their addresses. Guests of the board are encouraged to speak to matters relating to the programs, services, and operations of Des Moines Public Schools. Please remember that Iowa law prohibits us from discussing specific employees or their job performance. We ask all speakers to avoid references to personalities or character attacks, as those types of comments do not contribute to the purpose for which this public forum exists. The use of inappropriate language will not be tolerated, and individuals choosing to do so will be gavelled out of order and asked to excuse themselves from the premises. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in a discussion with public forum speakers, as it is our obligation to discuss only matters posted in the public agenda for the sake of transparency and opportunity afforded to all community stakeholders. Matters requiring attention will receive appropriate staff and/or board follow-up at a time after the meeting. Thanks for your participation. We appreciate your feedback and input. Ms. Rios, do we have speakers for this evening's public forum?
Yes, we do. First up, I'd like to call Patrick Lowe.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Lowe. I live at 2800 Arthur Avenue in Des Moines, and I'm a proud resident of East Des Moines. Instead of come here, become here, my motto has always been here, never want to leave. I wish more of our district leaders lived in Des Moines and sent their children to DMPS as I do. Even more than that, I wish our district would budget more money for salary increases every year that would attract new teachers and prevent a yearly exodus of teachers seeking higher pay in the suburbs. I want to talk about my $54 donation to the United Way last week. That was 1 month's worth of my salary increase from last year's paycheck to this year's paycheck. I spent over $150 buying goggles for new swimmers for our Des Moines East swim team after we were unable to get donations because we constantly have to ask our community to donate for our athletics, which are not funded by this district. I also donated $200 to the Goodrow Foundation at the Goodrow Gala. I appreciated seeing several of you there. That was great to see you there supporting our school and our community. But that's 8 months of my yearly salary increase from last year to this year in the last week that I've spent. Now, I give this money freely because my community needs this and I love my community, but I'm not an exception in this district. Every teacher I know spends their money freely to make sure our students, schools, and community don't go without. However, year after year, the only thing I can truly rely on in Des Moines Public Schools is that my salary increase is going to be less than 1%. IPERS assumes a 3.25% increase when calculating my retirement projection, but when I put in the average of my last 6 years' salary, which is stagnant, my monthly benefits are $2,000 less than their projections. That means in 9.5 years when I can retire, I'm going to make $2,000 less month after month for the rest of my life because we don't get salary increases. And as bad as that is, it's much worse for my wife, who is in the Des Moines teacher retirement system and was told by the district that you're going to be here in the district for your career, you should join our Des Moines teacher retirement system. She committed to the district, and the district has not returned that commitment. So, my wife also carries the insurance for our family. The district won't let me carry insurance as well, so I'm also losing out on that part of my compensation. What I and every teacher is asking for is that you finally make it a priority to give us a yearly salary increase above 3%. My love of my community and my school district will never go anywhere else. My hope is that the district will return that, not just with gratitude, but a yearly salary increase that doesn't make us rich, but might allow us to keep a little closer with inflation and allow us to be able to continue to give freely to our students, our schools, and the community that we love. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you. Next speaker we have is Gabrielle Smithman.
Hello. My name is Gabrielle Smithman, 2603 51st Street, and I've been an educator with Des Moines since 2015, and am also the parent now of a DMPS student in preschool, so I love that. I'm speaking today in advocacy of DMPS supporting a pay raise above the 3% base wage increase for our teachers and staff. A government report published in June of 2022 estimated that public education lost about 7% of its total teaching population. That's about 233,000 educators across our nation. For DMPS, after the 21-22 school year alone, we lost 330 teachers and administrators. Now, some of that was due to retirement, but the vast majority of those were resignations. This mass exodus of educators from the field has driven many reports and media coverage of the teacher shortage facing many states and communities like our own. However, I really encourage us to change our language when we discuss teacher shortages. Those 300 plus teachers didn't destroy their teaching licenses. They are still here. However, there are not teaching positions within DMPS that they're willing to take. While we don't have control over every factor of teacher recruitment and retention, one area that Des Moines Public Schools does have control over is in addressing teacher and staff compensation. In 2022, New Mexico saw a 34% decrease in their teacher vacancy rate after improving their teacher salaries. In an era when other school districts in the metro are gutting their collective bargaining agreements and freezing pay increases for staff, DMPS has the opportunity to put their money where their mouth is and show that they value high-quality educators in the district. Not only would a more than 3% base wage increase improve our odds of recruiting teachers from other districts or incentivizing those who left us to come back to us, but it would also serve as a good faith effort toward keeping the staff that we already have. Budget and funding concerns are always prominent in any district, but especially in one of our size. So I understand the balancing act that we must play. However, research shows time and time again that the greatest factor influencing student achievement is teachers. We need to prioritize improving teacher compensation to increase retention and recruitment of quality educators. We can't afford not to.
Thank you. Next up is Colin.
Thanks for
Coulter.
sharing your comments.
My name is Colin Coulter. I live at 3270 Garfield Avenue. I teach science at East, and I live on the east side. Distinguished school board members, thank you for your time today. I am here today to present to you one argument alone, that recent promising gains in student performance will quickly evaporate without effort to retain teachers by offering a large, one-time salary increase to adjust for inflation. First, let's talk about gains that teachers and building administrators have brought to students. Over the past 2 years, we have seen promising staff-driven gains in many categories. Data from the Panorama Survey shows gains in student belonging and student-staff relationships. ISAF scores are up, though to be sure, there is an incredible amount of work ahead for teachers. Teachers have driven verifiable increases in attendance, engagement, and learning that promise to result in persistent graduation rate increases. However, this work does not come for free. It is driven by staff who are willing to persist in a challenging building environment year after year, and this work is exhausting. First, a DMPS teacher faces structural difficulties, class sizes of 35 or more students, 6 classes per day, an inadequate 45-minute class period. In addition, the large volume of work to remediate students must be done simultaneously with regular classroom instruction. This double work requires demanding cognitive and emotional labor from teachers to build relationships with struggling students. Keep in mind, 50% of new teachers quit within the first 4 years. Throwing new teachers into one of the most challenging districts in the state, only to burn them out in a few years, not only fails to serve the district's goals, but is in fact immoral. What drives this burnout? The answer, board, is very simple. There is no balance between the incredible workload and the anemic salary. If you remember one thing from this speech, board, please remember this. While prices have inflated 30% since 2015, a DMPS teacher salary has gone up a meager 8%. This means that a teacher's salary in the DMPS in 2023 is worth less than it was in 2015. That is a difficult premise upon which you can recruit. Let me give you some close-to-home examples. As a DMPS teacher in district in 2023, I cannot afford a car, I cannot afford to save for home repairs, I cannot afford to save for my children's education. My wife has asked me to start looking for other work, and please believe that I am not the only one job shopping. Many of the most experienced and best teachers leave for better paid positions in administration or contracting. So what is the solution here? Again, it's very simple. A one-time salary increase of 10 to 20% would begin to bring teacher pay in line with the work required and the rate of inflation, and it will ensure continued student gains. It would show good faith at a time when labor movements everywhere are taking stronger action, and most importantly, a one-time increase of 10 to 20% in teacher salary is the best way to serve Des Moines Public Schools students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments this evening.
Next up, we have Caitlin Doyle.
Hi, Caitlin Doyle, 1209 Edgemont Street here in Des Moines. I was lucky enough to grow up here in Des Moines, and DMPS gave me a fantastic foundation for college and life. After spending my first 5 years as a teacher in Waterloo, Iowa, I decided to come back home. I was excited to give back to the communities that built me. When I moved back to Des Moines, I fully invested in the community. I bought a house in Des Moines in the community that I would be teaching and coaching in. I believed in Des Moines Public Schools and wanted to be a part of what makes us great. Throughout the years, teaching has gotten more difficult, but I still love it. I love my kids, and I love helping them learn. Teaching here makes sense for me. I feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I'm doing what I am meant to do. I've watched many colleagues leave, and I've made the choice to stay. Upon examining my finances, many would agree I am making a poor choice. As a single employee with no children, the benefits of DMPS do not benefit me. By staying in DMPS, I'm losing quite a lot of money. I could go to many neighboring districts and not only make more money now, but contribute a significant amount more to my IPERS. I didn't become a teacher to get rich, but I pride myself in being financially responsible. I'm tired of watching colleagues leave. I don't want to leave Des Moines Public Schools. I am the picture of come here, become here, and now come back here. In order to stay here, I need you as the school board to prioritize staff salaries in the budget. Our kids deserve better than the minimum. And in order to recruit and retain the best staff, we need to compete. When considering the budget, please be creative and do better than the minimum increase for staff salaries so we can thrive instead of survive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening.
Next up is Blythe Serrano.
Hi, my name is Blythe Serrano. I live at 219 4th Street, apartment 311 here in downtown Des Moines. I work as a special education associate at Madison Elementary, and I'm a proud member of DMEA. I love my job. Each day, I get to greet students as they come into school. I'm met with dozens, if not hundreds, of smiles and waves, hugs and high fives. Each day, I get to find ways to make learning fun for the students who struggle the most. Each day, I get to help students learn to regulate their emotions and manage their own behavior, skills that will continue to benefit them long after they leave our school system. Each day, I get to build my students' confidence by always being right there with them, by celebrating every little victory, by making sure they know that someone sees how hard they are working and is proud of the progress they are making. Each day, I blow noses, apply Band-Aids, sit on the floor, sharpen pencils, help resolve conflicts at recess, pick up grapes off the lunchroom floor, tie shoes, wipe away tears, and do so many other little things that help make our school a place where all students feel seen and safe and valued. Do you want to know how much I am paid for this work? $23,697 per year. MIT's living wage calculator states that a single adult living in Polk County would need to make at least $33,625 per year to support themselves. I am paid $10,000 less than that amount. The average rent for an apartment in Des Moines is $1,043 per month. My monthly take-home pay from my school day job is $1,747. There are currently 22 open associate positions in the district, 18 of which are for special education associates. Collectively, these 18 positions represent 117 hours per day of support that some of our district's highest need students are not getting. Why are these positions sitting open? Well, the starting pay for a special education associate in our district is $16.46 per hour. The starting pay for an assistant manager at McDonald's is $18 to $20 per hour. The starting pay for a shift supervisor at Starbucks is $19 to $21 per hour. And the starting pay for a bank teller at Wells Fargo is $20 to $25 per hour. As I said before, I love my job, and I love going home at the end of each day knowing I've made a difference in the lives of my students. But at the end of the day, hugs and high fives and a sense of fulfillment do not pay for rent or groceries or childcare or student loan debt. So if you think that students with disabilities matter, if you think that students with disabilities being in classes with their general education peers matters, if you think that students with disabilities having access to grade level curriculum matters, if you think that GLEAM should apply to our students with disabilities as well, then you think the work that associates do matters. And if you think that the work that we do matters, please pay us like it matters. A 3% raise is not enough. All school staff deserve a living wage. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, next up is Stacy Schmidt.
Dr. Roberts and DMPS board members, I'm Stacy Schmidt. I live at 2418 37th Street in Des Moines, and I'm an instructional coach at Lincoln High School. I'm here tonight as one of the co-facilitators of the LGBTQ+ staff affinity group for Des Moines Public Schools. My co-facilitator, Dan Gutman, planned to be here but had family concerns come up at the last minute. A few of our affinity group members are in the attendance tonight, and I'd like to thank them for being here. When our group met last week, we decided that we would like to share some of our experiences and thoughts with you at tonight's meeting. First, we wanted to highlight the importance of groups such as this one and the other affinity groups within DMPS. As members of a community that has been directly under attack by the state legislature in recent years, the ability to connect with the other LGBTQ+ staff in DMPS has been extremely valuable. Conversations that we've been able to have in this group have helped staff to navigate the current social and political climate as educators and better support our LGBTQ+ students, a group that is experiencing significant challenges right now. For each of us, the decision to be out and to what extent is one that occurs on a daily and sometimes even hourly basis. We also realize that there are many DMPS staff who've chosen not to be out for a variety of reasons. Our affinity group provides a safe space where confidentiality of our members is prioritized. We're able to build community and support for each other rather than feeling like we are existing in isolation in our buildings. At our meetings, we discuss concerns that we have, current issues or events affecting us, and ideas for how to best support each other and our students. We'd like to specifically thank tonight Dr. Roberts for the statement that he provided recently. While the incident itself that happened was unfortunate, this was the first public statement that we've seen from the district this year voicing support for our community. We hope that this is just the first of additional demonstrations of support for our community from district administration and the board to help us feel, as Dr. Roberts would say, seen, heard, and supported. Educators frequently discuss the importance of diverse representation in our schools, and LGBTQ+ representation is part of this. Our ability as educators to be visible and valued members of the DMPS community contributes to maintaining a climate of acceptance and support for our students. To that end, we want to emphasize the importance of maintaining safe and affirming spaces at DMPS for our LGBTQ+ staff. During affinity group conversations, a common theme was inconsistency in messaging around policies and legislation that affects LGBTQ+ staff and students, as well as inconsistent levels of support for our LGBTQ+ staff. We believe that our administration would benefit from professional learning about the unique challenges facing LGBTQ+ educators and students. Ensuring that building and district administrators are clear and consistent in conversations about policies and legislation is critical to providing a safe learning environment for everyone. We hope that the affinity groups will continue to provide spaces for historically marginalized staff members to build community and find solidarity. Thank you for taking time to listen to our experiences, and thank you again, Dr. Roberts, for your statement last week.
Madam Chair, that concludes our speakers for the public forum.
Thank you. I'm going a little bit off script, but I do appreciate all of the teachers and associates that were here this evening and appreciate your sentiments and your comments. I'm sure that you're not unaware of the constraints that we experience by virtue of the lack of funding we get from the state of Iowa. And I hope that during the upcoming legislative session, you will be as vocal, as articulate, and as present as you were this evening in sharing your sentiments about the level of student supplemental aid that we get, that we then have the ability to translate to negotiations and all of the other requirements of funding a district of our size. So again, I want to thank each of you for being here this evening, but I also want to see you at the state capitol. We'll now move to consent agenda items. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with the speaker regarding comments made to agenda items. Discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table, and speakers' comments informing the board's discussion, deliberation, and determination is deemed necessary. Ms. Rios, do we have any speakers for the consent items?
No speakers for consent.
Hearing none, I believe you have the consent motion, Ms. Sawyer.
I do. Last one. I move that the board approve the consent items in accordance with the recommended action for each item on the consent agenda, including bills previously authorized, certified, and approved for payment by the board secretary in the amount of $9,069,811.71, and procurement transactions in the amount of $757,960.91.
Is there a second? We have a motion from Sawyer and a second from Bradley. Any discussion or questions for anyone on tonight's consent items? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 7-0. The next several items on our agenda this evening are public hearings. We have item F1, public hearing for B9075 Carver HVAC upgrades. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item F1? Hearing no speakers, we will close the public forum, and I will ask Superintendent Roberts to please introduce the matter.
Thank you, Madam Board Chair. I recommend that the board review the proposed plans and specifications prepared by IMEG for HVAC upgrades at Carver Elementary School, hold a public hearing, and approve the plans.
Is there a second? Motion and a second.
Martirano, so moved.
Nora, second.
Any discussion or items or questions from the board members? We have a motion from Martirano and a second from Norris. Please cast your vote. Motion passes 7-0. The next item we have is item F2, public hearing for B9128, Central Nutrition Center cooler freezer door replacements. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to item B9128? Hearing no one, we'll close the public hearing. and I'll ask Superintendent Roberts to please introduce the matter.
Thank you, Madam Board Chair. I recommend that the board review the proposed plans and specifications prepared by Brewer Engineering for cooler, freezer, door replacement at Central Nutrition Center, hold a public hearing, and approve the plans.
I would entertain a motion and a second on item F2.
Norris, motion to approve.
Martirano, second.
We have a motion from Norris and a second from Martirano. Is there any discussion, or do any of the board members have questions? Hearing none, please cast your vote. Item passes 7-0. That concludes our public hearings for the evening. We will now move to information-only items. We have one item of information only, and that is the item G1, legislative priorities. Does that require a motion or a second? That's simply information. Thank you, just want to make sure. Okay, we will now move to our organizational meeting. The first order of business is to accept the resolution of the canvass of the regular election submitted by the Polk County Board of Supervisors and detailed in the agenda, declaring the following individuals elected to the Des Moines School Board of Directors. At large, Patrick Dix, Director, District 1, Kim Martirano, and Director, District 3, Anna Campos. I would entertain a motion and a second to accept the resolution.
Norris, motion to approve.
Alonso, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution from the Polk County Board of Supervisors detailing the individuals who were elected during the most recent school board elections. Board members, please cast your vote, and I would ask Ms. Martirano to abstain. She doesn't?
No, sorry, that should have said.
Oh, does not need to abstain. You can vote.
You can vote.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0. I declare the adoption of this resolution, and I want to congratulate our new school board members. They will officially be sworn in, but this is just a congratulations based on the canvass of the regular election. We will now move on with our items of privilege. I think we have a short video. No? Okay. All right. So I'd like to recognize our two outgoing board members, Kelly Sawyer and Dewana Bradley, who have served on this board since 2019. It's been a pleasure serving with both of you, and I'll have a little bit more to share shortly. But I would like for either of you, if you're comfortable, to share any parting words. And Ms. Sawyer, I'll start with you, and then I'll move to Ms. Bradley, or I'll let you guys
I was
decide
looking
which
at
order.
Tawana. I don't know who wants to go first. Okay. So I have to write everything down because otherwise I'll forget. So I have been describing my experience on this board as bookends. However, as I've been evaluating my time over the last 4 years, I realize it's really just merely a chapter, or depending on what you want to call it, it could be more than one based on what we've gone through the last 4 years. 4 years ago, actually this night and the swearing-in ceremony when we came on board, I will tell you, typically this is meant to be a short meeting. You come in, you do your business, you know, it's pomp and circumstance, right? However, that was also a time where we heard a lot of passionate comments from community members who shared their voice both for and against the community stadium. We were here for a long time. I know my family was certainly eager and kept asking, are we almost done yet? So I don't know, that was a great example of what was to come. However, it was also very symbolic that nothing was going to be as it seemed. During my tenure, I sat at this table to help lead the district through the pandemic. And for those who listened to our hours-long meetings with no decisions made, understand it was a challenging time. And however, through it all, I knew there was still yet more to come. When I ran for this seat, I had knowledge of the board's direction to focus on student outcomes, and I learned more about SOFG and knew it was the right work. When I was elected, the work stalled, mainly due to distractions, but the foundation was still in infancy and vulnerable. I am grateful for the work of this board to continue to fight through knowing the work to put students and student outcomes first and to keep ourselves as board members centered is the most important work of this board. While some of you may not, if you don't know our goals, I've heard from some that don't agree with our goals, that we talk about on a regular basis. It is important for you to understand there's a reason why we focus specifically on reading for all and 2 of our goals specific to Black males. And you see, we are building curb cuts. Dr. Roberts, you and I have talked about curb cuts. And when I brought it up to you, you said, I just wrote an article to staff about curb cuts. I'm not sure if people are aware of what curb cuts are. So curb cuts are the little ramps that go down sidewalks and up sidewalks. They were actually designed to help veterans become more mobile and move about more easily. Yet if you think about it, how many of think about your use of curb cuts. Parents in strollers, kids on bikes, walkers, runners. We all use curb cuts. There's a reason that we have them. What we've discovered is the impact of those curb cuts really affect everyone. So in order to get it right for everyone, we need to build the curb cuts for those who need them. And if we don't stop and focus on the kids who need us most, we will never succeed. As I leave this table, I know there are more curb cuts to build. The community should help drive the work and focus for the board. So community, I challenge you. You are now beholden to hold this board accountable, start to identify opportunities to listen and learn and provide your input, and help guide the work of the board to focus on the outcomes of our students at Des Moines Public Schools. Dr. Roberts, we just heard you say this tonight. We are not meeting the needs of our Black and brown students. We have curb cuts to build. I'm going to start by sharing my appreciation and gratitude to my family first. Yeah, I know, Sadie, you're just waiting over there. Ironically, I start with them because as I've sat on this board, I had the opportunity to enhance my learning of what it means to be a board member, including practicing mindset. And so for my colleagues at this table who've given out pennies for integrity, you know what this means. And I will say that everybody in leadership lacks integrity. So don't think that we all have it perfect. We all, in some way, lack integrity. But as I was going through those exercises, it became clear to me those that I often put on the back burner were you. I lacked the most integrity with my family, the most important people to me. And that's hard to acknowledge, but it's very real. So for that, I appreciate you for always being there for me and grateful that you allowed me to spend this time to be present for others. So Paul, I know you were so thrilled you got to throw away those yard signs out of the garage. You are welcome. And Sadie, you're a teenager now. I know, you're probably not going to be as thrilled having me around as much, but whatever. To my board colleagues, Jenna, Jackie, and Maria, when you joined the board, that led us to be the 7 women leading the largest district in this state. I appreciate your flexibility and willingness to step in. There were bumps and challenges as you continued to work through your understanding of our governance structure, but I know you all have passion for this district, and I am so excited to see how the work will continue to move forward. Terry, Kim, and Dwana, I'm going to miss you. I didn't think I was going to cry when I did this. I am honored to have sat next to you at this table through our hours-long pandemic meetings, focusing on strengthening our governance model and searching for the new superintendent. The laughs, the cries, we've been through it all. I have enjoyed getting to know each of you and watch you all, because you have all been in leadership in my time on this board. You are all passionate, smart women who lead with grace and humility. I value your friendship and just so grateful to have served next to you. Thank you. Dr. Roberts, I will tell you, I have not sat at this table that long with you, but through the interview process, through listening to you speak at this table, listening to you in the community, I believe you are going to do great things. And I am so excited for our kids and our families and our staff, because you are leading this ship. I get to watch you now from the sidelines, but I am grateful that you chose Des Moines. Thank you. Rosie, you are, I don't know how we would do our work without you. You are always there, always consistent, supporting throughout our work, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
To our 5,000 staff members in the district, while I certainly have not met all of you, it is evident that whatever your role is on this team, you bring passion and commitment to your work. And thank you for all that you do for our 30,000 plus students. And to the students and families in this district, I appreciate your support to allow me to be a part of this journey. So highlights of my chapter, or chapters, depending on how long you think this has dragged on. We have maneuvered through a global pandemic to address safety for students, staff, and the community, addressed and strengthened our discussion of student outcomes to assure we are a system built to address what our students know and are able to do. We selected the next leader of this district, who I know will do great things. 4 years ago, as it started with the stadium, a month ago, the stadium was completed and is now open to the public. So now I can say this chapter is closed. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this history.
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get through this without crying as well. Thanks, Kelly. So let's see how it goes. I ask you all to just hear my heart right now and bear with me. How does one begin to sum up 5 years of commitment with no pay? Missing only 2 meetings during those 5 years, serving in board leadership 3 out of those 5 years, dealing with the stadium, COVID, board policy change, SOFG work, a superintendent resigning, a new board, and gaining a new superintendent. Doing all of this while raising 2 kids, running a nonprofit, owning a media company, dealing with health issues, nasty emails, countless coffees with community members, phone conversations, school visits, community events, and agenda plannings. You do as your board coach has always told us to do. You go back and review the video, and I did just that. The woman who walked through those doors, being interviewed to fill a vacancy in District 3, has grown so much in the last 5 years. I have also learned much about this district, some which makes me proud, and some which makes me know this district still has work to do. I fell in love with teaching. There is nothing better than pouring into the young minds, learning who they are and hearing about the ups and downs of their lives. While I enjoyed my time with the students, it was a different story with the adults, especially the adults who were in a position of power. Through my teaching journey, I knew early on I was a leader and I wasn't going away from education. The adults did not agree with me. The adults diminished me. The adults made me feel as though I didn't have a seat at the table. I had administrators be micromanagers, and soon this place didn't feel like a place where I belonged. I was hurt by the adults in power, some of which still lead in this district. There are teachers in this district who probably have had similar experiences. Teachers are the foundation of the educational system. Without them, the foundation is non-existent. Take care of your teachers. They need planning time. They need to know you love them, and they need to be mentally well. What they don't need is administrators looking over their shoulders at every corner trying to get them out of a position they received an education for, a position they went in debt for, the place that they love to be and that they take home with them every day. They show up sick for you. They put their students above their own family. They work weekends and late nights for you. If you do not take care of your teachers, they will be gone, doing jobs they don't love because of the way you, yes, you know who you are because you made them feel like they were less than, all to prove that you were the boss. Let's not forget about our custodians, food service workers, transportation department, and our associates and any other staff within the district. They need you to take care of them as well. They deal with much and they need your support and advocacy. The cultural makeup of DMPS has changed over the years. We are now a majority students of color district. The students who are at the bottom continue to be Black males. I know this is a small population of students, but if we change course and don't have board goals which communicate our focus on them, it will be the detriment to our system. We are currently failing them, and making changes to the board goals will communicate you don't care. Yes, I know all of our students of color need the resources and the tools to achieve, but if you don't provide the resources to the individuals at the bottom and the data shows this is, how are they ever going to get to the top? Board, I am begging you not to forget about them. I am asking you make sure they have the resources. Because all of your students here, board, our students are always going to succeed because we push them to be their very best. But what about the kids who don't have that? It's our responsibility as a system to make sure that they do. Representation matters. And district, we need staff of color, not just in roles of custodial staff, food service, and associates. We need teachers and district leaders. I'm so grateful we have Dr. Roberts, but we need to elevate our own. We have amazing staff of color who would love to be poured into. Please don't treat them the way I was treated by this district. Board members, you are a team with your superintendent. You show your trust for the superintendent through your vote. Continue to reflect the vision and values of the community and make sure you have an understanding of what that means. Your actions impact the school district. The work you do is tireless, as you all have families, jobs, and other commitments, but you are making the greatest impact on a district that many talk about and don't always understand. Do what you are supposed to do and govern well. Remember who you are, both individually and collectively, and you create policy to speak for you. Be mindful of how you approach our community conversations and what you do with the goals. Any changes to them at this time will disrupt the district and not in a positive way. Continue to work on SOFG. You are the role model for this district. And if you are not in your lane as a board member, if we are not following our governance practices, then don't expect teachers to do what they've been asked to do. I have enjoyed working with each of you. But I have to call out Ms. Terry Caldwell-Johnson. You have been the board mom I've looked up to. You always carry yourself with style and grace. And when you speak, as my son says, the mic drops. I went back and watched the video during my interview. Thank you for always wanting to do things with excellence. And thank you for your leadership. God has so much in store for you. Thank you for staying on this board, probably longer than you wanted to. But your commitment to this board will never go unnoticed. I appreciate all of your guidance you've given me along the way. Dr. Roberts, I know I don't know you well, but I became a fan of you the moment you walked into that door for an interview. I knew it was you who would make an impact on this district in ways we have not seen in a long time. In Timothy 4:2, the New Living Translation says, preach the word. Be prepared when the time is favorable or not. Patiently correct, rebuke, and encourage your people with good teaching. I'll say it differently to you, Dr. Roberts. Lead the district. Be prepared to lead when they love you and when they hate you. Lead with patience and lead with love. But if leading means letting go of the way things have always been, it is okay. Your leadership will be better for our students and be an encouragement to them along their educational journey. Staff, Let Dr. Roberts lead. It's okay if you feel uncomfortable. Standing in his way will only hurt you more than it hurts him. Talking behind his back accomplishes nothing. Stand with him or move out of the way. To my family, all right there, they can raise their hands. I won't make them stand. And over there, thank you for allowing me to serve. I can't look at my mom or I'm really gonna cry. Mom and Dad, thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your support, and thank you for letting me cry in a safe space when I brought this work home with me. To my children, as always, giving your mama up to other people. Thank you for also not giving people a piece of your mind when you wanted to protect your mama. Thank you, Nautica, for encouraging me to attempt this. Thank you for seeing something in me that I did not see in myself. I am so proud of the woman you're becoming. And you really did come here to become here, as you will start your journey at East High School as a teacher in January. Jamarcus, thank you for having the conversation with your sisters. You both approached me to ask me, Mom, please don't run again. I would never say no to you guys. Well, maybe sometimes, but not in this instance. You are my babies, and you always will be, no matter how old you get. I'm happy that we have a great relationship to have those conversations and make those decisions together. I am also happy to see you grow as you have been in private school. It was the right place for you, Jamarcus, and you have turned into a handsome, God-fearing man. I'm excited to enjoy senior years with both of my children. Maya Angelou said it best. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. I'm sure some of you will forget what I've said. You will forget what I have done. But I pray to the good Lord that you will never forget how I made you feel. It has been an honor and a privilege to be selected to serve in the greatest school district in the state of Iowa. Thank you for entrusting me to serve you all.
I do have a small token of appreciation for both of you, but before I pass those out, I'd like to invite my board colleagues for comments, and Kim and I will close out. So who would ever like to go first, please push your mic and do your thing.
Duana, thanks for always showing your heart. We always know how you feel, and I love that about you. Kelly knows data, and I have no doubt you'll be keeping an eye on the data and holding us accountable. So thank you both for leading and the commitment that you made to this board for the past 4 and 5 years.
Kelly, I already told you privately to your ear and hugged you. I about kissed you, but I held back. Thank you for being so supportive of me. You were assigned to be my board buddy when I came on, and it made a whole world of difference. Thank you for the time that you gave me. Thank you for the understanding, the patience, and just being there for me. Thank you. You're appreciated. And Ms. Duana, I will not forget how you continue to make me feel. I forgot what you said. But I'm not forgetting how you make me feel. Thank you for all your work, your passion, your dedication, your commitment to people. I love that about you. And it's an honor to have sat with you as well at this table.
I just want to echo my colleagues and just thank you for both for opening your arms and welcoming me onto this board. Thank you for your patience and grace when I've asked so many questions over the 2 years. And I've just learned so much from both of you. You're both class acts. You are both just your fierce commitment and grounded in your convictions and your savvy of knowing when to speak and what to say and the impact of that. And so it's been wonderful to get to watch you both. And thank you for making me a stronger leader. Thank you for your service.
Can we get some tissue?
Take your time. There they are.
Thank you both. We've learned so much together. You've both been unwavering in your commitment to Des Moines Public Schools. It's been an honor to serve with you. It's been humbling to learn alongside of you, to not always succeed, to fail, and to get up together and try again, all in the name of our students. The grace, the collaboration, the kindness with which you approach the work, with which you approach representing the vision and values of the community is very much appreciated. And I only hope that I can continue to emulate what you have already done here on the board. You've both accomplished so much, and I'm so grateful as a community member and as a colleague. So thank you both, and I wish you well, and enjoy your time with family.
So as I was thinking about tonight, I tried not to think about it much, only because you guys have been great colleagues. You have stayed the course. You have lifted us when we needed to be lifted. And you have been there in the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we survived. We survived. And, you know, Kelly, I think about how I first got to know you when you leaned into the work of CLAT and really decided you wanted to help us embrace our legislative priorities and to advance those at the legislature through a volunteer role that maybe you weren't even interested in, but we somehow recruited you to, and I'm so glad we did. Because at the end of the day, it created an incredible platform for you to really not only come into your board role with an understanding of who we were as a district, but how we prioritized our work. So for whatever reason, and for whomever recruited you to Cladden, was that Cindy? Yay, Cindy. Thank you, because you have been a stalwart. And you have created some wonderful memories for all of us to embrace and to remember. And I also want to thank your family, because I know what a commitment family members make when individuals sign up for non-paid elected roles that require lots and lots of hours. So thank you, family, for giving her to us for the last 4 years. And we're going to give her back to you. I don't know if she's going to be in better shape, but she will be better equipped to help each and every one of you to continue your journey. Sadie through high school, and Mom through, and Paul through other challenges that you'll face as a family. So thank you. We're giving her back to you. Hopefully we haven't beat her up too much. But just want to say thank you for lending her to us and allowing her to be a great resource to us in ways that you may never know or understand. And then I think about Dewana, who actually volunteered and put her name up to be considered for a role that she wasn't even for sure she ultimately wanted to pursue. And I can remember the interviews as well. And we had a large contingent of individuals during that time who stepped up to be considered for the board role. And the thing that I remember the most about Dawana when she interviewed for the role was she definitely had some scars. She definitely understood her why for wanting to move into this role. But more importantly, she didn't allow her why to stand in the way of making the best decisions that we needed to make in this district to continue to advance things. So I really appreciate not only your willingness to lean in, but also your willingness to let go, because it made you such a great board member, because you'd been there, you'd done that, and so many of us have never been in teaching roles, so we don't have that experience, but you helped to illuminate and edify your why, and it helped us to better understand what you brought to this table and helped us to really be better board members when it came to understanding the needs of our staff at every single level. The other thing I want to just mention is that, we've been through some fires, we've been through some storms, you all both talked about it. You started out with the stadium, you were in the stadium. We suffered through the pandemic, and we finally got there, though. We had the perseverance to get to the other side of that in a way that hopefully helped to keep us whole as we suffered through probably some of the most challenging deliberations and discussions that I recall us ever having at this board table. It wasn't the 7 of us, it was 7 different people who brought totally and completely different perspectives, but I really appreciate you allowing us to work through one of the most challenging set of circumstances we've dealt with from an educational perspective in this state, and to still be here to tell the stories, and to still be here to have sustained this district in a way that I think prepared us for the next big chapter, which was the superintendent search. Dawana, I will never forget you always reminding us that you understood the assignment. You understood the assignment. And you understanding that assignment and helping to lead us in that year of transition really brought us to the point where we now have a new superintendent in place and someone who I agree is not only positioned to lead this district, but to also support the board as a team in moving this district forward in ways that I don't think we will ever be able to imagine, and I'm looking forward to that. The final thing I want to just say about both of you is that we know you're not going too far, because we'll be able to call you at any point for guidance, direction, support, advocacy. I would imagine that, quite frankly, you'd be willing to do just about anything for this district, only because you understand who we are, you understand the experiences that we've had, not only individually and collectively, but you get the work. SOFG, I think, has taken us to a completely different level, and both of you are trained in the model. So I'm hoping that you will continue to utilize that training, not only for us and with us, but with others that may enlist you along the way. Because there's nothing more important than our students and keeping our students at the center of what we do. So I would just personally like to join my board colleagues in thanking you for not only leaning in to this work, but for also saying yes to this work. It's the single most important work that you can do as an elected official. And I know we elect mayors and we elect city council members, but at this table, we elect the individuals that are preparing the next generation of leaders that come from our district. And I just want to thank you so much for pouring into our district, pouring into our students, pouring into this board and for always, always, always keeping students at the center and always being present. So it's been a pleasure to serve with you. You know, I was listening to both of you speak, and in a few short years, I'll be in your seat. And it'll be interesting because I'll be recalling almost 20 years of work in this district. But for whatever time period you are in a seat and have the pleasure of serving, being able to recall the things that you are most proud of to me are the things that, to me, what leave your mark on the district. So thank you both very much. I'm going to ask Kim, and hold the apple at the top, to share that one, and Dewana, I'll share this one. If we can give a round of applause for our outgoing board members. It is now time to adjourn our meeting, sine die. May I have a motion and a second to do so?
Alonso, so moved.
Board members, please cast your vote. The meeting is adjourned sine die on a 7-0 vote. We will have a short recess to reset the dais with our newly elected board members who will be sworn in shortly. So thank you all for being with us this evening. If we could get Patrick and Anna. Oh. Okay, just stay close. Stay close, because we're going to do this quickly. I'll see her afterwards. I would like to call this meeting to order and would like to invite Ana Campos, Patrick Dix, and Kim Martirano to come forward to take the oath of office. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially do the best of your ability, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the Office of Directors in Des Moines Independent School District as now or hereafter required by law? If so, please say, "I will."
I will.
I'd like to congratulate each of you for being elected to the Des Moines Public School Board, and I have a certificate and also a pen for each of you. Anna? Patrick Dix.
Thank you.
Kim Martirano. Congratulations. 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 If you'd find your place at the dais, we'll move forward with your first official roll call and our first official roll call as a new board. And I will ask Ms. Rios to please take the roll.
Ms. Alonso Diaz.
Here.
Ms. Caldwell Johnson.
Here.
Ms. Campos.
Here.
Mr. Dix.
Here.
Ms. Knox.
Here.
Ms. Martirano.
Here.
Ms. Norris.
Here.
Our first official roll call has now concluded with 7 members seated as members of the Des Moines Public School Board. And our first order of business this evening is election of the chair of the board. I will now entertain nominations for chair.
I would like to nominate Jackie Norris for chair of the Des Moines School Board.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to close nominations.
Madam Chair, we need a second.
Yes. Actually, I think we'll have a second for the nominations after we close the nominations. So is there a second to close the nominations?
Alonso, second.
Do we have a motion to close the nominations? Did I take that? I think you interjected. So I would entertain a motion to close nominations, and then we'll take a second, and then we will accept the nomination.
Martirano, so moved. I will close nominations.
Dix, second.
We have a motion and a second to close nominations. Let's take the roll on closing the nominations.
Yes, the board might vote. Or do you want me to take the
Well, we can do it this way. Motion is approved 7-0. We have one nomination, so I will close the nominations. I believe that we have a ballot in front of us, If you could please write your name and cast your vote for the individual who has been nominated, which is Jackie Norris, and please sign and pass the ballot to our board secretary for tabulation. Oh. Do you want me to help you?
Thank you. There we go. Terry Caldwell Johnson, vote for. Abstain. Jenna Knox, vote for Jackie Norris. Patrick Dix, vote for Jackie Norris. Kim Martorano, vote for Jackie Norris. Maria Alonso Diaz, vote for Jackie Norris. Jackie Norris for Jackie Norris. And Ana Campos for Jackie Norris.
Thank you. I declare that the board chair for our upcoming year on a vote of 6 with 1 abstention is Jackie Norris. Congratulations, Jackie. Happy to swear you in and to give up the seat. Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the office of directors in the Des Moines Public School District, actually chair of the director of the Des Moines Public School District, as now or hereafter required by law? And if so, please say, I will. Congratulations. You can do it from here. You sure?
Thank you. Next are nominations for vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Maria Alonso Diaz for Vice Chair.
Great. Are there any additional nominations? Hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion to close nominations.
Knox so moved.
We have a motion. May I have a second?
Dix, second.
We have a motion and second to close the nominations. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? We have one nomination, so I will close the nomination process. I believe we all have a ballot in front of us. So if you could please write your name and cast your vote for the individual who has been nominated, which is Maria Alonso Diaz, or abstain, and please sign and pass forward, and Ms. Rios will tabulate the ballot.
Thank you.
Did she spell it right? Maria Alonso Diaz for Maria Alonso Diaz. Jackie Norris for Maria Alonso Diaz. Ana Campos for Maria Alonso Diaz. Patrick Dix for Maria Alonso Diaz. Jenna Knox for Maria Alonso Diaz. Kim Martorano for Maria Alonso Diaz. And Terry Caldwell Johnson, abstain.
I declare that the vice chair of our board, with a 6 in favor and 1 abstention vote, is Maria Alonso Diaz. Congratulations. We'll now swear you in. Raise your right hand.
Speak loudly.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Iowa, and that you will faithfully and impartially, to the best of your ability, discharge the duties of the Office of Directors, Vice Chair of Directors in the Des Moines Independent School District, as now or hereafter required by law? If so, please say, I will.
Sí lo haré. I will.
I'd just like to say, as Maria and I step into this role, I want to thank you, Terry, and I want to thank you, Kim. You have been fierce, relentless, feisty, all wonderful qualities, and I really appreciate the leadership that both of you have exhibited, and I hope your leadership is not done. I hope that you continue to coach, engage, cajole, speak up, and do all of the things that makes us such a wonderful board together. Thank you. Maria?
I'd like to say that I deeply respect and admire the work that both of you have done, your leadership, and truly have been examples for me. Ms. Terry, I remember words that I heard from you on a call, and partially the reason that I chose to do this. You reminded me that I have a voice, and the people have a voice, and the community has a voice. And you have helped me believe in myself and in the work more than ever. Muchas gracias. And Kim, SOFG guru, you're not going anywhere. You are amazingly, incredibly made, and I need a piece of your brain. I need your brain. If you can share it with me, that would be awesome. And I've shared this with you also. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for the passion and your commitment. You are very admired. Muchas gracias.
Great, thank you. Next, we are going to move to the adoption of policies, regulations, and rules by the new board. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of policies, regulations, and rules by the new board. May I have a motion and a second to approve this agenda item?
Martirano, so moved.
Caldwell Johnson, second.
We have a motion by Martirano and a second by Ms. Caldwell Johnson. Board members, please cast your votes. The vote is approved, 7-0. Next on the agenda, we have items of privilege. I would like to ask if our new board members would like to share anything with all of us this evening.
I just want to thank everybody for their hospitality in this new role, and I am excited to start this new journey and to work with all of you guys.
I would echo those comments, and they're not here anymore, but our outgoing board members were such a great example for our new board members. Terry, thank you so much. Kim, thank you so much for your leadership over the last year. I want to thank my family who's here. Everyone knows that we go by Team Dix, and that's how we make decisions. And so this was a team decision for us to invest in Des Moines Public Schools as a family. And I think we just heard a lot about how much sacrifice this role you take on as a family. And so we're, I think, looking forward to the work. And then just as I was thinking about this, I got a couple of congratulations this week from some of my high school teachers. And I was thinking about it as you all were talking, and we hear so much about the amazing things at the beginning of these meetings that our own students do. And it just reminded me that, as Terry said, this is the most impactful thing I can probably ever do for my community, because we're shaping futures. The people that reached out and congratulated me, I wouldn't be sitting here without them. And so for our teachers here tonight that are still here, thank you very much. And don't ever doubt that you can make amazing people through very small gestures and small interactions with them. It'll stay with them for the rest of their lives. And I learned that this week because I've talked to people that I haven't talked to in a lot of years. So thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Now I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Roberts for his superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Board Chair. Congratulations to our newly elected board members. Certainly tremendous gratitude to our outgoing board members who have served with distinction, even before my time and certainly during mine. This evening's report is one that certainly connects to the season. In a couple of days, many of us are going to gather with friends, family members, relatives. In addition to dining and indulging in some of our favorite recipes, I think this time marks an opportunity for many conversations. The question is often asked and posed, what are you thankful for? In this role and at this time, I am thankful for three things. One, just the blessing of good health and strength to be able to lead because you've elected me and selected me to do so. Secondly, I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to serve alongside some of the most amazing school leaders, dynamic and spirited and brilliant teachers I've ever met, and certainly a board that supports the work of the district. And thirdly, I'm grateful for all of the students who knock on our doors, but more importantly, for the parents and the community that believes in us, that send us their best every single day. The board members who are joining us in this journey for the next several years to come, I want to offer you this. One of the most inspiring quotes that I often refer to from Nelson Mandela, and he said that there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. We, as the 8th member of this board, along with 7 brilliant minds who are sacrificing time and family to ensure that we demonstrate in every decision that we make exactly what Nelson Mandela has charged us to do. How we treat our children through the decisions we make will tell about our commitment to this community. Wishing you all a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Great.
Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts, and thank you for that wonderful reminder of gratitude that we'll take with us, all of us, into Thanksgiving. So family, friends, community members, teachers, and everybody that has been patiently here this evening to celebrate with us, we are going to wrap up. We greatly appreciate you being here. We are going to transition into a work session. If we do our job well, we will be efficient and effective because I know that there are celebrations to move on to, but we will be discussing community engagement and outreach community recommendations. So this meeting is adjourned at 7:43 p.m. Thank you very much. Do we need to? All right.
Rodney, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Rodney. Woohoo, we can hear you.
Okay. I think so, but I just didn't get, I didn't get a calendar invite, but I can do it. Board members, we are going to get started. And Rodney, you are on, correct?
And you said we'd be efficient.
Okay, and you can hear us
I can hear you just fine.
and you can see us? Nothing.
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you. And Rodney, I handed out what I sent to you as well, and that's generally what we'll work from, but then we'll expand on it as needed if that works. Okay, and Cindy's here as well. So we just need Jenna. Okay, so everybody should have at their seat, at their table, a discussion guide and what looks like an Excel spreadsheet. Does everybody have one? Dr. Roberts, do you have one? I think, let's see. Will you actually pass that, because Rosie has it electronically. Great. And I think we also may screen share if we need to, but as we enter the work session, especially for the new board members, I thought it would be helpful to provide a high-level background of where we left it at the last work session. And I'm going to ask Kim and Terry to let me know if I've left anything out, but this is just a quick high-level summary. So I believe this is what we had consensus on as we moved to this session, that we were delinquent in receiving community input to inform our board goals, and we plan to go out into the community in the next 2 to 3 months. That we're committed to getting the diverse inputs we need and want to make good decisions, and so we will look up in mid-January and see if our outreach is and feedback is rich enough, and if we feel that we have enough information from our community to inform our board work. And if so, then we will continue to proceed to the next step. This is me just talking through. I just want to make sure we've got consensus. Our tentative plan is to go into the community with questions pertaining to our current board goals and questions which may inform future board goals. We also agreed that if Rodney and Sydney could put together a short script and a longer script, that may allow us more flexibility in the outreach we are seeking to do. And then finally, for existing board members, I believe we were all committed to dedicating the time needed to get the feedback with the understanding that it was a compressed timeline. So I just ran through those things just to make sure to level set. This is what I think we're taking from the last work session into this session. Anybody have any questions or clarifications?
I have a question regarding the purpose of us going out. I think at the foundation, were we wanting to also come away with the ability to write a vision statement? Okay.
Yep.
Did you include that in what you had said? I'm sorry.
Not in my remarks,
okay.
but in my written
Okay.
work I did. But if
Okay.
not, I will make that clear.
Okay.
So
I-
yes.
I
so
think
we're-
that's like the overarching goal. Okay.
Yep. So generally, are we aligned with, this is what we talked about in the last session, moving to where we are now?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I may have missed this. I was informing Rosie about agenda planning tomorrow. But just to ensure that we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, we're building on the goals we already have. And considering the addition of up to 2 additional goals whose timeframes would overlap with existing goals.
Yeah, I don't know if we set a number necessarily, but I think.
Yeah, we said 2 because we want no more than 5.
Up to 2.
Up to, yeah.
Okay. So are we all generally on the same page enough so to move forward. Okay, so as I think about the goals today, in talking to Rodney as well, I think that there are 3 major items that we hope to accomplish together. One of them is determining how we define the community, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but one of our goals is how are we defining the community? Who do we really want to make sure we are receiving input from? How are we going to do it? So we'll discuss community engagement versus community outreach and other tactics to go into the community and seek feedback. We will discuss the board script, which I think Terry will inform kind of what you talked about, which is, and Kim, questions about vision, questions about current board goals, and the goal of the script would be what we'd use to facilitate our conversations. And then we'll end with, okay, who's doing the work and how are we going to pull it off? So that's the agenda that I'm outlining, if that makes sense for everybody. Good? Okay.
May I ask a question regarding a discussion of who the community is? Isn't our community defined by kind of who we identify as the priority populations to do engagement and outreach with?
I think that's where we're going right now, which is to ask questions about who our community is and who we want to hear from. That will inform our work. Is there a way you'd like to reframe it?
No, I didn't know that it was going to be a discussion here at the board table. I thought it was going to be kind of compiled information from each of the board members.
So we have a couple of choices. If that's the way you'd like to proceed, we will have to postpone and not do anything for another 2 weeks. I think if we're thinking about how we did it during the superintendent search, we actually spent some time during a work session brainstorming who we thought the community was, and then we did individual board work afterwards. I'm open to a different approach if you'd like to suggest one.
Mm-hmm. That's okay with me. I just did not come prepared to have, kind of have all of that ready tonight.
Okay?
So I was just going to offer that if we sort of follow past practice, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it is applied in the same way here, but if we consider trying to hear from other than the usual suspects, we need to design a process that responds to that. And because we know there are typically going to be folks that are just going to show up because of their interest in the district. But there are other people that are not as actively engaged that I think we have to be intentional with. So it feels like in the past, we have had open meetings for the general public, but targeted and focused meetings for individuals that typically are not showing up, where we're sort of taking the mountain to Muhammad as opposed to asking them to come to us. So when I think about community, I think about any and everybody who wants to be represented in the work that we do. But when I also think about community, I think we would be penny wise and pound foolish not to engage those folks that we typically don't hear from that are critically important, especially given the focus of our current goals, which is minority males and African American males, and then those that may have interest in pursuing that and whose voice we need to hear from.
I wholeheartedly agree, which is why I'm suggesting that we ask a few questions to narrow down whose voices we want to make sure we hear from in this process. And so that is the question that I'd actually really like to discuss this evening, which is just what you said, Terry, which is who do we want to hear from that is not typically showing up? And that to me is very important, that we hear from our board members to further target and provide guidance on how we do our engagement and how we do our outreach. So if people would like to work on this independently and then come back in 2 weeks, we can do that. It certainly will delay us. And I thought this is a conversation that we all probably could start at the board table at least.
What if we did a combo of the two, had a discussion tonight, and if there are additions that people think of as they walk away from this, because there's always something that you think of after you walk away from a discussion like this, then those can be added on. That way we may not lose as much time. Do we have to say it out loud at a public meeting, or can those be added on as we go?
Yeah, and we'll take you through the process. The process that we use for the superintendent search has a Google Doc, and there's a copy of the Google Doc, and it's also in the document that we'll send out. And it very clearly lays out the types of meetings that board members are interested in creating themselves or that they are interested in attending. And it's the opportunity for board members to sign up for those meetings as well. So if we could just indulge me a little bit and let's just have a conversation about the voices that Ms. Caldwell-Johnson called out that we want to make sure we are hearing, if people want to offer thoughts on that.
Terry, I want to understand, because I'm learning. I want to understand if I'm hearing you right about not only about finding the voices we don't hear from. And so if I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about like not doing it the same way we always do it, go out and have a public meeting. And so would an example of that be going to the faith-based community on a Sunday morning where there are already people gathered instead of asking someone to come to an extra meeting? Is that the kind of sort of combo that you're talking about?
Yeah, it could be that. And Maria has talked about using existing forums so that we're not reinventing the wheel, but again, taking them out into Mohammed, utilizing their setting, their space as an opportunity to engage in this kind of conversation.
And this would be a really good time, I think. Kim, I'll defer to you, or if not Rodney. One of the things that I learned was community engagement versus community outreach. And there is a difference. And so, Kim, do you want to speak to that, or do you want me to have Rodney speak to that?
Rodney would be great. Thank you.
Great.
Good evening. So, community engagement is our efforts, two-way communications that are hosted by the board. Community outreach is two-way communication hosted by community members. And so part of, I guess, kind of piggybacking on what you all have already started considering is being able to identify, really starting tonight or after this meeting, all the individuals that you think you should be hosting, and as well as all of the community members that that you would like to approach in terms of them hosting you as board members. And so the concept behind that is that if you all are able to put all those things in a document, in a spreadsheet that's shared, you would be able to see what each individual board member feels is important, each individual community, each individual stakeholder that you believe is important for you to reach. And then from that board as a whole compilation, then be able to prioritize and determine who would go out and participate in these listening sessions, whether you all are hosting them based upon individuals that you've decided you want to target, or whether or not you have are going to meetings that others are hosting, but also geared around your goal of trying to make sure that you are being inclusive in terms of the community that you want to reach.
Can I ask, why are we not just using our list we already compiled for the superintendent search as a starting point?
I think it's an excellent starting point. It's the second tab that we have in the Google Doc. So we have that for reference for people to look at. And I think that's an excellent starting point if people want to continue with that document. I think there's also an opportunity for people to give new ideas too, if they want.
Right, but I feel like we spent a lot of time thinking through all of the communities and trying to be intentional about outreach. And of course, that was narrowed down. Perhaps it's a different situation, but at least a good starting point to determine if that's still needed.
So based on what I'm hearing, do we want to give ourselves a timeline of a week to provide feedback into this document? The feedback that we're looking for is either hyper-specific, right? So hyper-specific would mean Jackie Norris is going to go to Rotary, and that's one hyper-specific idea. Or let me say it differently. We should go to Rotary. That would be a good place to seek input. Or somebody might say, it's really important that we make sure we hear the voices of parents from,
Our ELL students.
Thank you.
They're struggling.
Exactly.
So we need to hear from our ELL.
Exactly. So if you don't have a specific idea, you can put a general idea, I think is what I'm trying to suggest. And from there, we can compile it in partnership with Rodney and Cindy. And I think the goal is to then prioritize as a board and determine which are elevated most significantly. So what are the top priorities of the collective board in terms of the feedback that we'd like to get?
And just again, sorry, on parameters, are we, is when we talk about the community, is staff included in that? What are our borders? Are there any, or are everybody's included in this? And that's the idea. Okay. So as I'm thinking about this, it's
Yeah. It's who do you want to make sure to feel like you can make an informed thought process around vision, values, board goals, whose feedback really matters to you? Staff, prospective parents, people that typically don't show up to the meetings, how do we engage them? It's all of those types of thinking. Cindy?
No, and I was gonna ask, do they know Rodney?
I don't know that we do.
Yeah.
These two might not.
Hi, Rodney.
Yeah.
Cindy, why don't you introduce Rodney?
Yeah, sure.
And his role.
Do you
know Cindy?
And I can let Rodney introduce himself, but Rodney is also an assistant coach with the Council of Great City Schools. Rodney, I'll let you tell about your background and expertise.
Yeah. Oh, I'm seeing myself for the first time.
Yeah.
I'm 11 years in as a sitting school board member. I have background and work in technology, specifically around broadband adoption and digital literacy. I've spent a significant portion of my career and effort on this very topic of trying to make sure that we engage communities, engage our community members as owners and co-owners of a process such as this. And so I was asked a few weeks ago if I could be an assistant to Cindy as part of providing some thoughts and insight and experience with this community engagement and listening session that you all are embarking upon. And so I'll just mention as part of that, just where you all were just discussing, there are two spreadsheets that I do have ready available for you for your use. One would be where you can go in and enter the information for community engagement, and then a separate spreadsheet where you can go in and enter those organizations or individuals where you see the opportunity for community outreach. And then those two spreadsheets and what you provide there can then provide support for the community engagement and community outreach Google Doc that you were just discussing. But all of this that I'm prepared to support you in any way that the board feels appropriate also is intended to leverage the work that was being mentioned about the superintendent search, but also having recognition that at least I'm used to saying that anytime you get one new school board member, you get a new board. And so this would also give an opportunity for the new board members to bring their perspective to the table and for everyone to see that through that shared spreadsheet.
Great. Cindy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so, and We've met at the community training. Cindy Ellsburn. I am the coach for the board through the Council of Great City Schools and superintendent in student outcomes focused governance. So thank you for having us assist with this process. And while I'm talking, we'll offer to meet and get you all up to speed. Patrick and I met yesterday, so happy to do some one-on-ones to get you all up to about community engagement and outreach and all of the little technical terminology as well.
And former school board member.
Former school board member.
Nonprofit leader.
Yeah.
Among
Yes,
other things.
among other things.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Thanks,
So
Jackie.
I think just to kind of, from a process standpoint, I think one of the things that we're all saying we need to do is spend some time with the document, just for purposes of not confusing. The Google Doc that is in this document that I'll share, if we could just use that, Rodney, it's really based on what we use for the superintendent that we created with the community engagement team in partnership with AJ. So I think it's sufficient because you can clearly outline what is outreach versus what is engagement. So if that's okay, we can just use that document.
Is this, are you referring to this one?
No, it's the Google Doc. I gave everybody a copy of what it looks like. It's quite similar to, yeah. So you have an opportunity to identify what's outreach versus what's engagement. Would you like to amend the process, Ms. Martirano?
Are you seeing my wheels
I am,
spinning?
yeah.
No, I appreciate that we did a process for the superintendent search recently. However, I would like to remind the board that we did not, in my opinion, have a quality response during that process.
So
And-
how, yeah, I don't disagree. I don't think any of us disagree.
So I want to be open to not using that as our jumping off point. And certainly, when we look at the list of the populations that we want to include, by all means, if we want to copy and paste that, but I think when we look at the process of prioritization and the process of ensuring outreach, we should be open-minded and because I don't think that we did a good job.
So Kim, help me understand, is that a failure of identification or execution? Because if the identification is good, then maybe it was just our execution, and so the Google Doc works. It's just maybe we didn't, as a district, we didn't think about the execution of it and getting as much feedback as we could. To Terry's point, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think, did we identify the right groups, or at least a good starting point for it? I think it is a good starting point. How we do it, I think, is, to Terry's very key question here, it's doing it differently and really thinking about that.
Yeah, and I think populating the spreadsheet is not the concern. I think ultimately the who is going to be very similar. It's what comes after that. And so prioritization and identifying who are the priority groups is probably, it was the portion after the identification where I think things.
If I remember right, it was collection. Like, you didn't have good data to analyze, right? I mean, I remember we didn't have all of the information collected appropriately and analyzed.
I think that was a
way with
survey.
fidelity.
Yes, but the data that we did have was 60% of our the data that we did collect were individuals that were identified as being white, and 40% of those 60% were individuals that identified as staff. And those are not exact percentages, but those are rounded percentages to where we were. So we got a very large amount of white staff members to respond in comparison to the entire population.
So if I could just make a recommendation, I think it's a great point. If we could, with intentionality, just spend some time, since the format is not an issue, just spend some time the week putting your ideas in this spreadsheet. You can refer to the superintendent search or not, but it's there, should people want to look back and see what was done in the past. I also think that one of the ideas that I'd like to surface for consideration is it's a shorter time frame that we're trying to gather the feedback. And again, if we don't get all the right feedback, then we have to look at ourselves and decide we don't have all the right feedback. But one of the ideas for consideration is knowing how hard it is to get at harder to reach populations. There's a couple of different models that you could work with in partnership with a nonprofit or in partnership with a vendor to identify the voices that we want to be sure come to the table and recruit them to come to the table through recruiting services, whether you use a nonprofit to do that and they organize the gathering, or we use a vendor to do it, where we're giving them demographics of the voices that don't show up. Somehow I think we should approach this as if we don't have that as a backstop, and we go out and we achieve, hopefully, the feedback that we want. But if we're not getting it, we're all very committed to getting it, and so we have to come up with other mechanisms to ensure that we're getting the authentic feedback we want. But we may have to look at it differently. We may have to go to our nonprofit partners or community-based organizations to ask them to help us and potentially provide them some small sum and incentivize the participation.
So, excuse me, what I would offer is I really like the latter option because we're using individuals who are trusted partners with individuals in the community to actually help us engage their respective communities in this important dialogue. And I do like the fact that we have sort of a template or groupings that we're interested in pursuing, but finding the right community partner to help us bring those people to the table, to me, is going to be a much easier lift for us as a board than it would be for us just to do the blanket y'all call, and we get the same people that we've always gotten and really haven't penetrated the veil when it comes to trying to get that level of input that an NAACP or a LULAC or someone else on our behalf can bring to the table. So I'm going to strongly encourage us maybe to get away from individual populations and maybe an opportunity to think about nonprofit organizations and individual community-based organizations that have the groundswell of participants and individuals that they can invite on our behalf, recognizing that they value this work, and if we as an organization value this work, we want our members to do the same. And it feels like that allows us to cut to the chase, and it also allows us, again, the opportunity to get to folks that we're not going to get to if we just do an all-call for non-English speaking or minority or SPED or this or that.
How do people feel about that approach?
I like it. Terry, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on, so let's just say we go out and we do would we do the normal all-call kind of meetings? Okay,
Yeah.
so let's just say we do a phenomenal job and the community is ready to talk and they come organically to those meetings. How do you feel about then waiting, or how would you wait the focus groups that are maybe brought a little bit more intentionally or with different tactics to the organic groups? What could we maybe think about that and say, we don't know what's going to happen. And if we are wildly successful, then great, we can weight these things in a different way. Do you think there's more value
Yeah.
even in the?
I don't know that it's about a weighting.
Okay.
I think it's about a level of engagement that allows us to have the opportunity for, again, other than the usual suspects, to be heard from.
Okay.
And if we can expand our grassroots efforts to attract those people through other organizations, to me, that's a win-win, because you're getting the best of both worlds without having to do all of the heavy lift to get the people there, but relying on your community partners to help you do that.
So it's volume and variety of voices cumulatively. Who cares how we get them,
Right.
as long as we get them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Knox, Ms. Alonso Diaz.
No, can you hear me? I mean, what I continue to hear is intentionality, right? And we talked about wanting to do this differently because we have to be more intentional, because we, like Ms. Terry says, it's the same people, that continue to show up. And I think that we need to do things differently. I really like this approach, and I think it would be, I'm really excited. I think the results will be great. It just depends, are we all willing to do it and invest? Because it'll take some investment, right?
Yeah,
There's a-
financial, I was going to ask, do we
Well,
have, that's the one thing I don't want to do is
Yeah.
I want to make sure if we're going to feed people, I want to make sure we're showing up to support people in this and
Yeah.
our partners.
Feeding people, not feeding organizations.
Correct. I think the goal, and there's in your packet a potential RFP that, based on this conversation, we will modify. But the goal was to work with a third party just to help organize. So to the point, DMPS would still be responsible for facilitating, so board members would facilitate the meetings. They would take the notes. They would report the information to Cindy and Rodney. We would handle food, as an example, but work in partnership with a community-based organization or other entities if we're struggling to find the right community-based organizations to do the recruiting. There is a cost associated with that. I don't think I have a number, but my guess is it's $10,000 or less. And there is money in the budget for that. Typically, when you send the RFP out, you wouldn't put a price on it because you want to see what people come to the table with. But the goal would be that we're using an outside entity to coordinate all of this. So whether it be a community-based organization, which I think is our first preference, is to go to community-based organizations. And then if we're falling short there, or there's still a gap, then we identify other ways to recruit those voices and bring them to the conversation.
Isn't that something that the council, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, isn't that something that the council could do on our behalf? We're already contributing resources to them for this kind of work. I don't know. I guess I'm asking the question.
I think this is where I'm going to turn it over to Rodney with because he's been the primary one thinking about how I've been a little more hands-off than Rodney.
If I can, before we turn it over to Rodney, I feel compelled to say we are the elected body to represent the vision and values of the community, and I don't feel good about handing over this to a third party.
How so? How so?
I believe that it is my job to identify and represent the constituents of this community. And so if we're hiring someone to go out and maybe I'm misunderstanding what we're wanting.
I think there's two paths, and maybe we just have to keep it a little flexible. I think the ideal path is that we turn to our community-based organizations and we ask them to put together a group of people that board members can come in and facilitate a conversation with.
So isn't that our outreach process? So there's the engagement, there's the outreach. Is what you're explaining outreach? Or is what you're explaining something in addition to the engagement and outreach?
It's engagement.
So engagement is is two-way communication that the board hosts. So the board hosts a meeting, we invite people in, and we have two-way communication with whomever shows up. Outreach, so that is not what we're describing here.
Okay, I was taught that outreach was walking into a pre-existing event. Maybe I'm misunderstanding how you define outreach.
So you just said that it was engagement, though, and so what I just, maybe I'm.
Engagement is hosted by the board. Outreach is hosted by the community members. And if I'm following and based upon conversations that Jackie and I had, I think what she's offering is also having a third party, whether it's a vendor or community-based organization, be an additional tool or asset to the board to try to make sure that the stakeholders, the demographics, stakeholders that you're trying to reach, that they could potentially be a third option or an additional tool to try to make sure that the individuals that you're trying to engage with, whether you're hosting them from a community engagement standpoint or whether they are attending or being hosted by community members, but it's just trying to make sure that there's an additional vehicle by which you can make sure that you attract those individuals to the listening session. That's my interpretation. I think that, I would have a couple of things for you to consider. I don't think you need to see this as either or. I think that you must do it all. So as was just being said, you all are out there. You're there to represent the vision and values of the community. Some of you have just come off a campaign trail. You knocked on doors. You did a whole lot of things that you wanted to do when you wanted to reach people and have people listening to what it was that you wanted to offer to them as being their representative on the school board. Now you have the opportunity to go back and reach out to them again and offer them the opportunity to come and tell you what they value, what they want for your students, and what their, I think it was said earlier, what their vision is for you all as a school board. So I think you can do both of those things. The other thing I want to just offer a soft caution about, you want to engage, I recommend that you want to engage with community-based organizations, but also think that in what I've heard you say in terms of trying to make sure that you reach individuals that you have not reached before, oftentimes, even in community-based organizations, there are folks who do not attend those meetings or feel like they are not included in the structure of those organizations. So to me, nothing substitutes for each of you as board members to make sure that you are bringing forward people that you have spoken with, people that you've engaged with, individuals that you've worked with beyond what we may consider the traditional community-based organizations. I'll just use one example. For example, the business community. So the business community is a significant stakeholder. And so there may be the chamber, there may be all kinds of organizations that would fall within the business community that you want to make sure that you consider reaching out to. So I just wanted to offer that, but I think it really does start with each of you giving some thought to who it is that you want to make sure that you reach out to, that you consider as part of the community, and then be able to meld and mesh those ideas and thoughts into the prioritized list that would ultimately lead to the meetings that you all decide to host and that you can sign up for to attend.
Great, thanks, Rodney. Ms.
sorry,
Diaz?
go ahead.
Can I, Kim, I just wanted to go back to your comment because I don't know that you were able to express fully what you had in mind, but I'm curious about, I know that you said that you have trouble letting go of something that, in your opinion, is our responsibility because we're the ones representing the vision of the community. What part is it that's hard for you to be like, I'm gonna give it to someone else. Someone else can do the work instead of me?
I will fully admit, I don't know that I fully understand what's being recommended when it comes to hiring the third-party organization to recruit, the recruitment services piece. I don't fully understand that. So the statement came from me just skimming through this information here, and it feels as though we're looking for someone to recruit individuals to participate in our outreach.
So I think I think this, and I apologize if this isn't clear, trying to do something different, I think we need to be open to iterative. We don't have all the answers today. I think we've got to pull all of the instruments out of the toolbox. And one of the instruments is that we as a board identify community opportunities and facilitate a discussion and seek feedback. I think we need to do a survey, and I think we talked about that. I think we have to be open to the idea that what we do is not going to be sufficient in our eyes to get at what we're all talking about, which is intentionality. And to get at that intentionality, there's really two other pathways. One is seeking a community-based organization who will partner with us and put together a group of people. I think Rodney shared that that's not always perfect either. And sometimes another way to do it is just very systematically asking a recruiter to pull together some very specific voices that we think are underrepresented and pull them together in a conversation. The board would facilitate it. They are DMPS parents, family members, or prospective parents. It's just a different tactic to try and get at making sure we hear voices that we don't historically hear.
And Kim, if I'm hearing you right, you don't want to let go of, you don't want to let somebody else decide this. I don't think anybody's talking about letting go of the deciding. What we're talking about is getting somebody else to do the work of recruiting those groups that we identify. This board will decide who we are going to. It's the work of being very intentional about gathering those groups that we're letting go of. That's the way I would understand it.
So we would generate a list, they would call the list and determine who's interested and who's not. That's what I heard you just say.
I would think that we would identify who we want to hear from.
Yeah, and honestly, the way it can work, and this is the iterative nature of it, is if we look and see where we are by the second week in January, maybe we look at the demographics of our survey responses, we collect demographic data of who we're hearing from. That's also a way to compensate and say, okay, we've heard from too many of these voices and not enough of these voices. And so that's the iterative nature of the way to think about it. We don't have to do it. We may find that we did a bang-up job and we don't need help. But I think if we consistently say we're not getting the voices that we want, we've got to try a couple of different things.
Or see
And I think with reaching out to the community, they're already based, like the parents, the staff members or whatever are already connected to them and they trust them. Like this is all about trust, because if we have opened this up just to we've done it before, the community doesn't know us or they don't trust us, but they trust those other organizations. Mm-hmm. So I feel using them both, doing the listening sessions on our own and then incorporating those other community members, I think that will honestly be our best bet, because they already have that tight connection with those families that we don't, and they already have the in with those families, because families are not going to come to us and not know us and not confide in us. Mm-hmm. So I think that using those both will help us out tremendously, and we'll get good perspective on all of it.
It's a great point.
I'd like to move on because I really want to make sure we talk about the script a little bit, but to ensure that we are generally moving in the same direction. are we all comfortable between now and the 28th putting information in the spreadsheet that is very much focused on engagement and outreach? And when you're putting things in as board members, I'd really encourage you to be thinking about your capacity and willingness to actually do the work that's going to go behind it, because everybody's going to have to do work to make sure that we are intentional in this work. So is everybody comfortable if we move on from this point? Everybody has the Google Doc link. I think it is.
Did you send that?
I'm going to send
You're
it
going
after.
to send it.
Yep,
Okay.
after tonight.
All right. I think the other thing, just for us all to keep in mind, Kim, because I agree we didn't get accurate data, and I think we talked about wanting to be able to monitor that data when we were doing collections last time, and that was not whatever we did last time as far as knowing where we sort of were at to be able to either go back or just take this information and move forward. I feel like we dropped the ball somewhere in there. So I don't know what the strategy is moving forward, but that would be one key piece that I think if we could see sort of some regular reporting on demographics to be able to course correct, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I was on that committee. I'll have to check with Kelly on the survey, because there was the survey piece and then there was the meeting piece. I'm not sure how intentional we were at collecting that information at the meetings. So, everybody okay if we move on? Because I want to make sure that Rodney and Cindy just talk to us a little bit about the questions itself and the conversation. And in this packet, I provided the Google Doc, the response form that Rodney provided. The goal would be that he's going to introduce this tonight, and that, again, we will provide feedback to him no later than the 28th. So Rodney, do you want to set up the community listening script?
So we're filling out the spreadsheet for individuals in engagement and outreach and reviewing script feedback by the 28th?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Rodney?
Yes, I don't know if you have the document up in front of you
They
via
do.
the link. Okay. Well, pretty much this is intended as a way for us to support you in the script development for the listening sessions that that you will host, or the ones that you will attend. And it's really pretty basic. There are 3 paragraphs or 3 questions with a few questions built in. First, I just wanted to reemphasize what you said earlier, that what the board does, you're there to represent the vision and values of the community, why you are having these sessions, what your goal is around the goals and guardrails that you spoke to earlier. So these are long form responses. I'm just asking if each of you would take a moment and review the questions. You can see the first one begins to gather feedback to discern the vision and values of the community, what should be at the beginning of the script, what should be at the end of the script. Again, by script, these are the what each of you would be doing at your sessions to ensure that there's uniformity across the sessions. So this is how you will be describing why you're there, what it is that you are seeking to have the individuals who are participating in the listening sessions to answer. And so the goal here is to make sure that each voice of each board member is represented, and then Cindy and I will work together to consolidate that into a script that we will send back to you as a draft, and then ultimately you all will approve that script and then use that in your listening sessions moving forward. So that's pretty much a short description of what you have there. Anyone have any questions about this Google Doc and what's being asked?
Is there a best practice here? Is there an all-star script or several all-star scripts that we could read and then maybe decide that, well, that doesn't fit so much, but I like this part, or, and anything that we could get that looks like that?
I think last time, I don't know if others remember this, but we practiced it. And do you remember that? We practiced it, and I think there were some things, even as we were practicing, we felt like
It didn't flow.
it didn't flow, and then we made some changes. So I'm sure Rodney or Cindy may have best practices, but I also thought part of it was we actually just went through the exercise as well.
Yeah, and we would do that again. So built into this are best practices in order for us to get feedback from you all as board members and to get your input. And then from there, as we would take the 7 responses that we get and meld them together, then ultimately it would be a script that you all would agree to and feel that represents what it is that you want to ask of your community. The key here is that, as we've said many times over, you all represent the vision and values of that community. You all know the community, and so it's important that we get that feedback from you as what makes sense for Des Moines Public Schools and the community that you serve, and not necessarily try to just copy what some other district may do that may have a entirely different set of circumstances in their community.
Hey, Rodney, this is Terry. And I also want to make sure we don't lose the opportunity to educate on goals and guardrails as part of the script. And one of the things that we had discussed was ensuring that we all have a common starting place so that we're building off of the work that we've already done and creating an opportunity for people to understand SOFG in its shortest form possible. Also understanding our existing goals and guardrails, and this is not about eliminating those, but building on those. So if there are others that we want to add, we have the opportunity to do so. So I think how we frame this discussion is as important as what we get as a result of having done it. If we're not all starting at a common place, then it makes the work that we do disjointed and not reinforced with what we're already doing.
I just kind of remember though, I thought we just were going to go, I think we definitely want to educate and sort of give a common place, but I thought we were going out to listen to what the response was and then make decisions about pathways forward, not committing to adding goals, not committing to doing anything. But I thought when we had this retreat, Cindy, I thought we left, I thought the feedback was, we just have to go out and listen first and then decide what we're going to do with that information.
What's the mechanic? Yeah, what's the mechanic there? Is it, what's the practice of SOFG? Is it in these listening sessions, is it to create entirely new goals? Is it only to build on the goals we have? Or is it to add a goal? Or a combination of those three?
It's to listen.
It's what we discussed, and now that we have a newly constituted board, we may decide to go into a different direction. But where we last left the conversation was that this is an opportunity to educate, to build on what we currently have, and determine whether or not what we hear from the community leads us to add 1 or 2 goals, nothing more than 5, but creates the opportunity for us to have that conversation, absent having had it in the last several years. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. It helps me from a historic standpoint. I'm wondering from a SOFG mechanic standpoint, like that's the what happened. I'm wondering what the rule book says.
So the rule book is not, it's a framework, so there's not an absolute. If there was some circumstance in the community where the community context changed, and it's not just community input that you're looking at when you're setting these goals, you're looking at current student performance data that will identify high leverage, high need areas of the organization and coupling those things to, and one piece of it would be, yes, you will listen. So you're not going to go out and you're likely not going to hear people say, we need a goal on elementary reading for Black boys. You're going to hear our kids need to read. It's fundamental. We need to read to, learn whatever they might say. And then you're going to look at your student performance data and see where the high leverage, high need areas are. When we looked at it before, it was Black males. That's what led us there. If the data says something different and people say something other than reading, math, and what have you, then you might consider changing the goals. I think the board has been pretty firm on wanting to see those goals through to the sunset, but I think you're going to have to see what the community says as well.
And again, just for mechanics, the sunset is?
2026.
Okay. And so my thought was only like, what if we get there? Well, then we're going to move on. So there's not an absolute there, but
Well, there is an absolute and a finite for existing goals.
yeah.
There would be a new absolute and finite for new goals.
Okay.
But there is also going to have to be a point where, once the current goals sunset, we do this again. It's an iterative process.
Okay.
So we're always sort of painting the Golden Gate Bridge, if
Okay.
you will.
Got it.
I'm going to suggest a couple things just to keep us moving. And with regards to the script, I think Rodney really wants input from people on what we'd like to hear in the script. So some of the things that Terry's saying and other people are saying, let's put that in this document for Rodney to take a look at. I'm also going to find the script from last time, because there was some information about that was the role of the superintendent, the role of the board. There was some language that I think we used that was helpful as well. So I'll find that, Rodney, and I'll send that to you and Cindy. So if it's okay, I think we'll move on past this piece. Rodney, is that okay with you if we cover the script?
What's our deadline?
Your deadline for both documents are going to be the 28th, which is a week from
Today.
today. And ideally, well, we'll talk about next steps in a moment. Ms. Alonso Diaz.
I'm just wondering if it would be helpful to have form a committee by an ad hoc, just to kind of take the lead and facilitate this process.
That's a great idea. We did it during the superintendent search, and I think it worked well.
Bring a recommendation back so that it's a little bit easier to tweak.
So I nominate Ms. Alonso Diaz to lead the ad hoc committee.
Good job raising your hand.
That sounds good.
And just for new board members, there can only be 2 additional board members, just in terms of being careful that there's not the presence of a quorum. So Ms. Alonso Diaz, I'll leave it to you to determine the composition. We probably want
I
somebody
think you
with...
should ask people if they want to be on the committee, and then you can decide from there.
Sure. Kim's out, so who would be interested in serving on this?
Does that have to be
ad hoc
right
committee?
now, or could people just maybe send a note?
Yep.
And then you can report back? I think that would be
Perfect.
good.
Yeah.
And then if I may, if you keep in connection, whoever's on the
Yes.
committee, in connection with Rodney.
Absolutely.
and
To utilize,
me.
yes.
Yep.
You use the support.
Awesome.
Just so we're clear on the primary, I had suggested to Maria that it was Rodney. Is that...
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
perfect. Just from a
absolutely.
primary point of contact.
Absolutely,
Okay, great.
yep. That's great.
Okay, so we're going to move on past the script. Kim, just so you know, what you missed was that there's an ad hoc committee that's going to get formed. And if you're interested in wanting to participate in that, you can just let Maria know. Okay?
Thank you.
So as we wrap up, I think what I'll just call out is where I think we're leaving this conversation. So one of the critical action items is by the 28th, and we'll say close of business, however you determine that to be, everybody will have been in the Google Doc. You will have thought about the audiences that you want to get in front of. You will be both as general and or as specific as possible. So for instance, Rodney says business community. There are multi approaches to that. So try and be as specific as you can to help inform the board so we can lift up what we think are the consensus and board priorities. The second thing is you are going to give feedback to Rodney and I by the 28th on the community listening script, so he can put together a draft of the script. The third action item is I will find the old script and share that with Rodney, so there's some basis for how we went into the community last time. And then the last item is that Ms. Alonso Diaz will stand up an ad hoc committee. And if you are interested in wanting to serve on that committee, please let her know. Finally, I will, based on this conversation, I think, put forth some additional thinking on an RFP should we choose to go down that path. I will tell you, due to DMPS rules and regulations, even if we start today, the earliest that they could come in and support us in some way isn't until January 2nd. So we probably want to, in the next week or so, put some additional thinking into whether or not we want to move forward in some way using a third party.
Can I bring up one thing that's in here that maybe you're getting to or decided not to, which is the data portion? You call that out a few times through here. How do we get that? How do we use that? Can that be worked on in this next week so we have some of the committee has some of that information?
Yeah, it's a great, so there were two things. One was actually Ms. Campos's idea, which is there's a lot of survey data collected by surveys that DMPS does, even just this year, around things that touch on vision, values, goals, and other topics. And so one of her questions was whether or not there's any data that could be used that might inform our goal-setting process. That was one of the questions. The second is there any data that DMPS has about engagement, family engagement? I don't know if it's open rates of emails or it's survey participation, anything that would tell us a little bit more about who is less inclined to participate that would inform our outreach strategy. And I don't know if that's something, whether it's Dr. Roberts, we could ask you, if there's anything of use that would inform our approach.
So if I'm not mistaken, we've sort of collected survey data in a couple different ways. Some we ask for demographic information, others we don't. So it's going to be difficult to discern with existing data where we have and where we haven't, so that we can determine what we're missing. So I think we have to take that into consideration as well.
So there's a most recent one that was sent out, I think it was last month or the beginning of this month, that did ask for demographic of the child and the parent. And then it went through safety, if the kids feel safe, a lot of different ones. So
Where's that?
I mean, I think that one, honestly, that was just sent out within the last month. I think that would be a good one to look at.
So just, if I may, just so for new board members, when we talk about vision and values, and the board engaging the community versus the staff and the district engaging the community, it's going to be a different type of questioning that you're going to, and so sometimes the survey, while it may seem like it would apply to vision and values, and maybe it will, sometimes that's more operational. It gets more into tactics and operations, and the information that the district would use for actual programming versus the underlying value. Just so we, and that's something too that I think in one-on-ones we can get more into what do we mean by vision and values.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but give me an example of a operational question versus a.
So so if you're going to ask so a question that would get at values, what should Des Moines schools stop doing? What should Des Moines schools keep doing? A tactical question, does your child feel safe? That is a very leading them down a values base question. Do you see what I mean? Like you're already putting the value in front of them.
Safety is the value.
Safety is the value. So
Questions are always like really.
It strikes me that asking a parent or a community member who has no idea how the school districts run or what is in our control, what we should do without giving them at least a little lead would be very, very difficult. It's like, what do you think about this nuclear arms treaty? I'm for it. You know, how should we do it? Like, I mean, this is, I guess this is where I struggle with this, because asking the community without giving them any framework at all for a subject I think would be tough. And so if we introduce a subject, are we introducing a value? Is that the deal?
Possibly.
It all depends, but
So I'm going to suggest, just because efficient and effective, I probably didn't nail it tonight as my first night as chair, but that's okay. We'll play back the tape. What I'm going to suggest is that we're going to need some time on December 5th, which is our next board meeting, to have a work session to unpack some of this stuff. Prior to it, maybe Patrick and Anna and some other combination of one other board member, we can spend some time thinking and looking back at SOFG and the current SOFG practices, how questions are asked, what data is available, and just spend a little time onboarding. The other thing I'll say related to that is there's some onboarding work that has to happen, and we don't have a lot of time to do it in terms of calendaring. We have one session on December 14th that is held, and we have one board meeting on December 5th. We're not together again until January. As some of you may recall, under, at that point it was Dwana's leadership, we actually dedicated just about every Tuesday in January. I think we actually started in December, but in January to power through some things that I think are really important. I am wondering how people feel about making a commitment now to definitely in January, setting aside our Tuesdays.
And
for-
February,
and
and part of
February.
March.
Yeah, thank you. So,
Yeah, budget.
well, yeah, I was going to step into it, but I think if everybody could just be put on notice that we should just hold Tuesdays between now and, potentially when some of the budget stuff really starts.
Before the meeting, after the meeting, all of
Well, imagine every other, right?
No,
So-
evening time.
Yeah.
So we probably 4 to 7, 5 to 8, whatever
So when
we
there's
need.
not a board meeting, right, we'd start somewhere around typically 5:30, so it works for people's work schedules. And when there is a board meeting, we'll probably add on a work session. And I think my commitment to you in partnership with Maria is to try and lay out a schedule of things that need to be accomplished together as a board and then individually onboarding. And Kim, I think, has paved the way with some good thinking about what would make some effective onboarding practices.
Let me just underscore, as outgoing chair, that was extremely effective when people committed to being here. And we know that there may be nights that you may have to join virtually or only join a portion, but we need everybody in. This work is too important for us not to have everybody in.
Good, well said. Before we wrap up, Rodney, any parting thoughts?
I do have one question for you, Madam Chair. So the community engagement and community outreach spreadsheet that you're asking the board to complete, will you be sending out instructions to the board on how to complete that spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay.
I will review them with you first, Rodney, to make sure you like what I say.
No, it's not about that. I just
Yeah,
want
no,
to
it's
make
good.
sure if the feedback is eventually going to come that they understand what you're expecting and I understand what you're expecting.
Great, perfect. All right, team, happy first board meeting. Great work session. We're off to the races. Thank you very much. Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Rodney.
Thank you. Thanks, Rodney.
Bye, Rodney. Happy
See you,
Thanksgiving.
Rodney. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
How do we turn off Rodney?
Maria's still, Rosie's still here. She can do that.
Out. I